This is Rogers TV.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 26. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, it's minus 12 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 10. Here's what's making news right now in Ottawa and the Valley. Well, we have breaking news this morning from Health Canada with another COVID vaccine approved for use in our country. With the details, here's Jamie Pulfer.
Great news. Health Canada has given the green light to the Astrazeneca vaccine, adding yet another weapon to this country's pandemic fighting arsenal. And that means millions of more shots will be going into people's arms. Canada has secured access to 20 million doses of this vaccine. It was co-developed by researchers at the University of Oxford. It's a 2-dose vaccine, but different from the ones from Pfizer and Moderna. Those are messenger RNA shots. This one is made from a weakened version of the common cold virus, modified to look more like coronavirus, although it can't cause the illness. Once injected, it teaches the body's immune system how to fight the real virus. And this vaccine can also be stored in a normal fridge, making it much easier to distribute. So once again, Health Canada has approved the Astrazeneca vaccine. I'm Jamie Pulfer.
City News Time, 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll have varying amounts of sun and cloud today, but a pretty good day overall, the high near zero. Tonight, mainly clear, just a light wind will drop to minus 10. It'll feel, though, like minus 16. And for the weekend, morning snow Saturday, changing over to rain showers will climb to 4 degrees. Showers or flurries for Sunday afternoon and evening with the high near plus 5. For today, the high 0.
And right now in Ottawa, it's minus 12 degrees. And in Smiths Falls, it's minus 10. Well, it could be another case of vaccine line jumping. The man who heads Canada's pension plan traveled to Dubai to get a shot. A memo to employees of CPP, Mark Macon, says he received one of the, quote, the shot on a very personal trip. He's believed to still be in Dubai, and now we are learning that he has resigned. This word coming just moments ago, and here's our senior business editor, Mike Eppel.
Mark Macon submitted his resignation last night as the head of the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, following the revelation disclosed in an internal memo that he and his partner are currently in the United Arab Emirates on a personal trip and have received the first dose of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine. In that document, the trip, Macon says, was intended to be very private, and he is disappointed that it has become the focus of public attention and the expected criticism. Macon says that he has followed all travel protocols. Still, the federal government has actively discouraged Canadians from traveling abroad. So, with this shakeup, the CPPIB is promoting long-standing investment strategist John Graham, an internal promotion to be the new CEO. Macon had been at the helm of the CPPIB since 2016. At the Business Center, I'm Mike Eppel.
City News Time, 9:03. If you've been craving movie theater popcorn, you're in luck now. Cineplex Cinemas is opening today. Statement on the company website says they will be following all government regulations to ensure health and safety of all guests and staff. Face masks are required at all times unless you're eating or drinking while seated in your assigned seat. Cinema staff will be screening all guests as they enter the theater and will require contact tracing information from everyone who enters. A feature-length film featuring everyone's favorite cat and mouse team, Tom and Jerry, will premiere today in theaters. The Queen is encouraging you to be vaccinated against COVID-19. The 94-year-old monarch says the shot is quick, it's harmless, and it will help protect others against this virus. She made the comment in a video call with officials responsible for rolling out the vaccine in Britain. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Good, bad, or complicated.
There's no news in Ottawa and the Valley he won't talk about.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Friday. We made it. According to the Ontario Lottery Corporation, my odds of winning tonight's Lotto Max jackpot of $70 million all by myself are 1 in 34,294,800. But did that stop me from buying a ticket? No, it did not. And that's why some people call the lottery a tax on the stupid. Good luck. And just imagine. Good morning. This is the Rob Snow Show, Rogers TV and City News. Great program ahead. Includes all our regular Friday contributors like the legendary Lowell Green, standing by with a hot take today. Pierre Bourque of Bourque Newswatch will look back at some of the biggest news headlines of the week. He wants to talk about Buttergate. It's amazing how that story took off this week. Hard butter. I do notice it, okay? I think the butter is harder. It's not softening at room temperature, and I'm not buying organic butter. I can't afford organic butter. I can barely afford gasoline. $1.24 a liter this morning around the corner here from the radio station at the Esso. $1.24 a liter? And Mr. Trudeau's carbon tax, price on carbon, price on pollution, that's going up soon. And there's going to be the clean fuel standard, the carbon tax by another name. Who knows what the price of gas is going to be come springtime, and if they close that pipeline. Line 5, we'll all be lucky if we can buy gasoline at all. $1.24 a liter, regular unleaded. I'm glad I don't drive a fancy car that requires the fancy gasoline. The premium unleaded, $1.45 a liter, premium fuel. Like $87 for a 60-liter fill-up. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Sports, Steve Warne back this morning from the Steve Warne Project. I can't believe I'm saying this, but we're going to talk about the red-hot Ottawa Senators. Yeah, imagine. Great game last night, big win. 3 wins in a row. Play again tomorrow afternoon. MPP's on the program today to talk about the vaccine rollout, changes that are being proposed for political fundraising not going over well at Queen's Park, and our special guest this morning, Doug Ford's lead person on the Ontario vaccination plan, retired General Rick Hillier. Just off the phone with him, as a matter of fact, about 20 minutes ago. We'll bring that interview to you in about a half an hour, about 9:45 this morning. For the Talkback Hour, it is the Friday free-for-all between 10 and 11. We love the Friday free-for-all, because we don't do the heavy lifting. You do the heavy lifting. We don't come up with the topics. I don't come up with them. David doesn't come up with them. You come up with the topics. If there's something that's been in the news this week and you want to talk about it, call me and we'll talk about it. If there's something that you think should be in the news, call me and tell me. Say, just call me. Rob, I think this should be in the news and you should be talking about it. I can't promise you that I'll make any sense, but I'll do my best. We just kind of roll with things during the Friday free-for-all. The Talkback Hour is every morning on the Rob Snow Show between 10 and 11. And the call-in line is 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Email therobsnowshow, ottawa.citynews.ca, therobsnowshow at ottawa.citynews.ca. Boy, plenty happening in the news already this morning. You just heard in our newscast, the Astrazeneca vaccine approved. Finally. Took you long enough. The vaccine numbers are actually getting better for Canada. The average doses given per day is now 49,000. 49,000 per day. It's no world beater of a number, but it's certainly better than it was a few weeks ago. You can put that up against what they're doing in the United States. Here, 49,000 a day across Canada. The United States is still averaging 1.3 million doses a day. 1.3 million. We have managed to do 1.5 million doses in 74 days. Just by way of comparison, the Bloomberg Vaccine Tracker says it will now take 3 years for Canada to achieve herd immunity, which is also an improvement. It used to be 9 years, so it's getting better. But it's 7 months in the UK to achieve herd immunity, and it's 10 months for the United States. So in Canada, things are getting better. That's good news, but they need to get a lot better, and soon. If most people really are going to be vaccinated by Mr. Trudeau's promised timeline of sometime in September. So we can get right back into that if you want. Or we can get into all the other things that aren't going very well when it comes to the big files being handled by the Trudeau Liberals. I mean, the shipbuilding program. I mean, what a massive boondoggle this is. $17 billion over budget, years and years and years behind schedule. Some of these ships are not going to be delivered for another 20 years. We had reports from both the Auditor General and the Parliamentary Budget Officer on that massive sinkhole of a file this week, and the PBO, Mr. Giroux, was on our program. Soon, we're going to have a Navy in name only. Okay? We're going to have a Navy. It's going to look like Old Navy at the shopping mall. About as effective, the way things are going. We'll have a Navy with no ships. I mean, you could look at the whole national defense file and conclude it's a giant disaster. How Harjit Sajjan has not been shuffled out of this portfolio is just beyond me. I mean, we still don't have fighter jets. When are we going to get fighter jets? How long has it been going on, the whole fighter jet fiasco? It's a revolving door at the top of the food chain. The top guy leaves because he's under investigation. The new guy comes in, he's there for a month, and now he's under investigation, has to step down. Does anyone in the Trudeau government bother to do a background check or vet anyone anymore? We don't have a governor general, right? Trudeau meets Biden, doesn't say a word about the Line 5 pipeline. So what? So what if Pearson runs out of jet fuel? And almost 2 million people unemployed. And yet, if the election was today, the Liberals, they'd win on a landslide. Because, you know what? Over in conservative land, with the Conservative Party of Canada, you might want to start paying attention to this story, folks. All is not well in the Conservative family. In fact, I would say we're on the cusp of a civil war in the Conservative Party of Canada. You start paying attention to this. There's a write-up in the Hill Times this morning about it, and it won't be the last story of its kind, because the media, especially the political media, they love it when conservatives are fighting with conservatives. I first started hearing about this week. The social conservatives, i.e. the more religious conservatives, they're trying to seize control of the party because they feel betrayed by Aaron O'Toole. They feel that he lied to them during the leadership race, that he told them, I'm true blue, in order to win the leadership race, and now he says he wants to make the party more appealing to moderate, centrist Canadian voters. So the religious conservatives, they're also mad because he kicked Derek Sloan out of the caucus and then kicked him out of the party. So they're trying to take over the upcoming policy convention. There's a conservative policy convention in March. And they want to turn it into the Bible Belt show with nonstop resolutions about gay rights and abortion and conversion therapy. And what my Conservative Party sources are telling me is it's going to end up being a giant gift to the Liberals. And it's basically going to hand the Liberals the upcoming election on a silver platter. Maybe you might want to comment on that. I mean, just ask yourself, what's going on with the Conservatives these days? It's not like Mr. Trudeau's on any kind of win streak. Why aren't the Conservatives ahead by 20 points? Doug Ford's ahead of the Liberals by 18 points, according to the last poll in Ontario. The Conservatives are actually losing support under Aaron O'Toole. We always are open to talking politics on the Rob Snow Show. Now, I want to take a moment and I want to send my condolences to the family and friends of Brian Fraser. Brian passed away yesterday of cancer at far too young an age, 26 years old. And I worked with Brian for many years. He was the technical producer of my show on CFRA radio. And we had many, many great times together on the radio. I wouldn't have met David without Brian. And we loved doing those Ottawa trivia extravaganza shows together. And we cheered for the Senators together. And we cried about the Senators together. And we got mad about the Senators together. He was a very passionate sports fan, all sports. He loved the New Orleans Saints and the Boston Red Sox and the Ottawa Red Blacks, and he had an encyclopedic knowledge of pro sports. He wasn't just a fan, he was a fanatic. And he knew how to do great radio, and he loved radio. And I have no doubt he would have had a great career in sports broadcasting. And he loved the Tragically Hip. And I'll never forget how he helped me get through that broadcast the morning Gord Downey passed away. But one of my happiest memories of Brian is always going to be that damn giant yellow rubber duck that came to Brockville. I don't know if you remember that story about the Wynne government spent money, taxpayers' money, to bring this giant rubber duck to Toronto. And a lot of people were calling my show, and they were totally up in arms about it. Surely the government has better things to spend money on than a giant rubber duck. But anyway, that stupid duck, eventually it floated into Brockville, which is Brian's hometown. So we went down there to see it, the giant rubber duck, and Brian met us there, and he played tour guide, and it was just a great day. Our hearts are heavy today. Harder because nobody can get together and say a proper goodbye. It is a great loss. And I know David feels the same way. You fought the good fight, Brian Fraser. Rest easy. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
I started, as I said, at Lester's Barber Shop, and it was kind of, it was one of those things that it was just an opportune time for me to get into it, just because he had decided that he was going to retire after the fire, and then the opportunity presented itself that I could open my own shop. And so I went from a 150 square foot space on St. Patrick's Street to a 600 square foot space just on Beechwood to now here, and I'm in a 1,400 square foot space now. And I don't know, it's been an interesting journey because, you think that you're just going to be just you or a really small space, and then all of a sudden, you've got 10 other people working for you. You're in a much bigger space, and even incorporating the boutique. Last March, when all of this started, we closed down a little bit earlier than everybody else, and I'm going to say, being honest, part of it was social pressure. We shut down before everybody else did, and I'm watching all these other salons, just be really responsible and say we don't want to be a part of the process. So we got ahead of it and closed, and then, the week later, the government's like, everybody's shutting down. And so it was a little nerve-wracking. I guess the first step of us, trying to innovate and just keep moving forward was when the salon is closed, right? It's like, what do you do? Our whole industry is based on being with people, cutting their hair, providing a service. You have to be people together to do that. You can't do that remotely at all. So one of the first things that I saw in our industry, what people were trying to do is they were selling their hair products that they had. And luckily, I've had a website that always had a web store in the back. I just never used it. So as soon as I saw that people were doing that, I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to load up all my stuff. And so that worked out really, really well. And then from there, I managed to find a place that was like a wholesale website that allowed you to have net 60 days. So you don't have to, you can order all the stuff. You don't have to prepay any of it. There's free returns, all that. So that made it really easy for me to bring in other products and start trying to sell it. And so I went from selling hair products to shave products to bath and body products to a little bit of clothing and jewelry, and now it's just morphed into this whole, like, I want to make it a whole legit boutique. And by December of last year, I decided that this is a full-fledged thing and we're going to separate it. It's its own company. So it's really finding an opportunity that's there and running with it. So it's been really fun. Our clients are loving it. Our clients that have been here for a long time, they love it.
Voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Good morning, Lowell Green.
Rob, that was a wonderful, heartfelt tribute to Brian Fraser, and I want to thank you very much. I share your sentiments. The show must go on. Now, you're talking about the religious right trying to take over the Conservative Party. I think a lot of people may not understand that this guy, Derek Sloan. This guy is trouble from A to Z. He is a religious, well, I can't really say a nutcase. Let me just say that he is a religious fanatic. There is no way that this country or the majority of people or anywhere near the majority of people support what this guy Sloan advocates. There's just no way. There is no way that hardly anyone is going to vote for a party where Derek Sloan has any influence whatsoever. I don't think a lot of people understand the trouble this guy is. He is trouble with a capital T. Believe me, he is a religious fanatic. We do not want, there is no room for this. There's room for this guy in a party, but as far as I'm concerned, not the Conservative Party. He's free to run for some other party, and if people support this, fill your hat. But my goodness gracious, what a way to hand an election to a totally incompetent and I suggest corrupt government. I'm talking, of course, about the Trudeau Liberals. Honest to God, you're talking about all of the failures of Trudeau and his government. I mean, we have the highest unemployment rate in the G20. We've got the highest debt per capita in the G20. We have the poorest vaccine rollout in the Western world. It just simply goes on and on and on. I was just from the top of my head trying to think of all of the people, important people that Trudeau has lost. The Privy Council clerk, remember that? He had to step down after the Lavalin controversy.
Well, he took early retirement, yeah.
Well, yeah, but he had to step down, early retirement, whatever. But it was because of his role. He lied during the Lavalin investigation scandal. And Gerald Butts, who was chief of staff, he had to step down. He's apparently back in some role. He's lost the Attorney General, the Jody Wilson-Raybould. The health minister, Jane Philpott, lost the finance minister. He had to resign over the WE scandal. He's now lost, two...
the innovation minister has taken his own kind of walk in the snow there.
That's right. Two chiefs of the defense staff are now gone. Two chief of defense staff, The governor general is gone. It goes on and on and on, but it goes much deeper than that. There's a very interesting and kind of disturbing article in today's Financial Post. Let me read you just a couple of paragraphs from it because it's very germane to what we're talking about here. The article talks about how the world essentially looked up to Canada in many areas under the Harper regime. We led the world in many ways in banking. We had a very stable banking system. Technology was going very strong here. Energy, of course, we led the world pretty well in energy. But here is what the article in the Financial Post says, quote, global leadership in key industries has disappeared. Canada claims just one of the Financial Times 100 leading global firms, Shopify. Smaller countries like Denmark, Sweden, Spain, and South Korea all have at least two companies on that list. Nor have we been able to build on our strengths in banking, energy, or technology. Attempts to capitalize on our reputation by creating an Institute for Banking Stability in Toronto came to nothing. Canada's major contribution to global finance today is to serve as an ATM and safety deposit box for money laundering from China. Our assumed technological prowess in everything from artificial intelligence to aerospace has not produced a successor on a global scale to match that of Nortel or BlackBerry. Canada's superpower status in energy is undermined by an inability to build pipelines or new hydro dams. In sum, Canada has the same problem as many of our children, high self-esteem without high levels of achievement. We feel very good about ourselves, but for no apparent reason.
Wow.
That's just part of an article that everybody should read in today's Financial Post. This government has been an absolute and total failure.
Right.
And of course, when we talk about...
So then, if that's the case...
Yeah.
If that's the case, for example, I took a call this week. A very concerned member, well-connected conservative called me this week and said, Rob, do you ever wonder why isn't this party, the Conservative Party, 10 points ahead in the polls?
Well,
if that's the case, and that's quite a list that you rhymed off, we can probably add a few more things to the list, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Then why is Aaron O'Toole at 29-30% in the polls and not 39-40% in the polls?
Well,
I mean, Doug Ford's Ontario PC party's at 44% in the polls.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, maybe Aaron O'Toole, people don't know Aaron O'Toole. He's not a very charismatic person, that's for sure. The strife in the Conservative Party, this attempt by the religious right to take over and spread their propaganda, I think is very harmful. We've got the Maxime Bernier thing, which also drains off votes. We've got a media, for the most part, that is anti-conservative, would never give the Conservatives a fair break. We could go through all of those issues. But I think that, by and large, people simply don't understand how the grave situation this country is in. Let me just point something out. I don't have that much time. A lot of people are concerned, a little upset over the slow rollout of vaccines. We're now 57th in the world, by the way, when it comes to vaccines. But, this goes far beyond just people like myself unable to get vaccinated. According to the Financial Post and the National Post, by the time all of this is through, Canada will probably be about 6 months behind most other Western nations in getting vaccinated and getting our economy back up and running. If this is true, even if we're 2 or 3 months behind, can you imagine? We've got the United States, the UK, the European Union, etc., those nations that compete with us, all of them up and running and strong. Their economies are pooping on. All the lockdowns are over. We are still in severe lockdown here. This, among other things, is going to drive even more capital, domestic and foreign, out of this country. It's going to mean that we're going to be 4, 5, 6 months behind all of these other nations. This is going to further damage the economy. We don't have an energy industry anymore. We can't build pipelines. We can't even fix 24 Sussex, for God's sake. So, but I just don't think people understand the gravity of falling this far behind other nations when it comes to vaccines. If we don't have vaccines, it means that we still have a crippled economy. The sooner we get vaccines into more people's, the sooner we can get our economy up and running again. But if we're 4, 5, 6 months behind other nations, Rob, God help us.
Thank you for this morning.
Anytime.
Yep. Talk to you next week, Lowell. Thank you again. Yep. That is Lowell Green. Pierre Bourque, Newswatch, retired General Rick Hillier on Ontario's vaccination program. It's all coming up after the news. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 26th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -10, warming up in Smiths Falls, -5 degrees now. And here's what's making news this hour. Canada is going to receive 20 million doses of COVID vaccine, a new one, as Health Canada announced the approval this morning of the Astrazeneca shot. This is approved in Canada for those 18 years of age and older. There are still a couple of companies with vaccines awaiting approval in Canada from Johnson & Johnson and Novavax. The chief executive of the fund that manages Canada's pension plan investments has resigned. It was revealed that he decided to travel to the United Arab Emirates, where he arranged to be vaccinated against COVID-19 while there. CPP Investments says Mark Machin tendered his resignation to the board last night. U.S. Secretary of State continuing to work on pandemic diplomacy with Canada. Anthony Blinken will visit virtually today with Prime Minister Trudeau and Foreign Affairs Minister Garneau. The visit follows up Trudeau's own virtual meeting this week with the American President Joe Biden. The conversations will likely include the plight of the two Michaels currently being held in China. City News Time at 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hey, Pierre Bourque is here from Bourque Newswatch. Good morning.
Hello, Rob. Good morning.
Hey, it's great to hear from you. So, look, I know for years that you have spent a great deal of time covering the follies of DND. And whether it's procurement of fighter jets or procurement of ships or just this revolving door that we seem to have lately at the very top. What do you think about everything that's going on with national defense, Pierre?
I think they have a systemic problem in there. On the procurement side, it seems to be overly costly to buy anything, whether it's pencils or frigates and everything in between. And that's frightening enough because the budgets have just exploded. If you take a look at the frigates, I mean, where are the frigates? Or we had one of a research ship the other day up on our website, and it's $1 billion for one ship.
For a Coast Guard ship, yeah.
For a Coast Guard ship. Look, the average Canadian, myself included, it's hard to fathom what $1 billion is worth, especially in an era when the governments are announcing multi-billion-dollar investments in this, that, and the other thing to fight the pandemic. Yeah. But by gosh, the average citizen, just thinking about it, if you looked at a ship on the dock, you're in Halifax, look on the docks, you see a ship somewhere. Yeah. Or you're on the West Coast, look out your window in Vancouver, and you see those ships. You say, $1 billion for one of those. Holy smokes. I think it's completely run amok. Look, the problems we have here are compounded by the fact that we're not getting the product. That ship is delayed. The frigates are delayed. Who the heck knows when we'll get those?
Well, let's say some of them well into the 2040s. Won't be delivered for another 20 plus years, which is...
Yeah. And that's a wonderful deal if you're the shipbuilder. Holy geez, what a great deal for you. And isn't that just wonderful? But where is the actual product? Same thing could be said with the fighter jets. Look, I remember, a decade ago, there used to be Lockheed ads alongside the buses of OC Transpo touting their wonderful F-35. I haven't seen one yet land in Ottawa with a Canadian flag on it.
Huh, the F-35, yeah. Yeah, other air forces are flying them now.
Yeah, I think what we did was we took our very, very old Canadian CF-18s and traded them in or mothballed them so we could get some almost equally old ones from Australia.
That's exactly what we've done. Yeah. And we bought a few parts airplanes. I was just thinking, you remember the photo op Peter MacKay and the cardboard F-35? How long ago was that?
That's a decade ago. It is a decade ago or longer. But Rob, when was the last time Canada was in an air fight, a dog fight? Snoopy and the Red Baron. When was that? When would that have been for Canada in our context? When did we last have that? Sure, from time to time, the Russians will tweak our nose and they'll send one of their giant bombers along the sky in the north or to the west.
Sure.
And we sent up a CF-18 just to remind them, hey, we're actually a sovereign nation here. But there is no dogfight. Same with frigates. When would have been the last time? I'm thinking it must have been World War II. Could I be wrong? The last time that we fired something out of a destroyer.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't know. I'm no expert in that, but surely a country must have an air force. It must have a navy. A country the size of Canada.
Well, that's what we thought.
I know you're a big believer in the drones. You don't even think we need fighter jets. I think, we've had this conversation before. I get the sense you think the whole fighter jet program's a big waste of money now because you think drones is where it's at, right?
I think drones is where it's at. I also think that technology is where it's at. You can disembowel some of the most highly technical military equipment by getting in there and gumming up the cyber works, right? And that's what you can do in there. Look, some brainiacs decided we needed submarines. And how was that done? The Dud subs. How long ago was that?
Yeah, military procurement has not been kind.
Terrible.
Absolutely
terrible.
I said, Rick Hillier is coming up here in about 10 minutes from now. He's in charge of vaccines. Maybe I should have asked him about the current state of military procurement as well. He probably would have had a few words about that. So, because I think isn't he the one who coined the decade of darkness? Wasn't that his line, the decade of darkness?
He would have been right if that was him, and you can sense the frustration. But that brings us to the other thing, leadership at the top of DND. What's going on there? And so goes the rest of that department if that's the leadership that is brought forward. And I think it's too disingenuous for the government, the elected people, to say, well, I just found out yesterday about this. Harjit Sajjan is a former military guy. He was a colonel or a major of some sort. And he's been Minister of National Defense now for over 5 years, half a decade, for gosh sakes.
Yep.
He must know these people.
Yep.
He must have heard any rumors that have been floating about either that or there was a willful negligence, perhaps, that he didn't want to know. He was just happy to float about in his military plane. And, I don't know if he's got what Patty Haidu has, which is unlimited access to the government jets. But the government jets are controlled by DND. So presumably he has them at his disposal whenever he wants.
Do you do a lot of baking in the Bourque household? You use a lot of butter in the Bourque household these days, or what? There is always a need for butter, my friend. It is a chef's best friend. However, not so big on the idea that the farmers out there, the dairy farmers, are feeding their cows palm oil because, from what I understand, it's not the best of oils for humans. Well, it's not the best of oils for. Well, apparently it's high in trans fats, but whatever the case might be, it's not the best for soft butter. That's the problem, and that's where the scandal is. Are you one of the? Do you have a butter dish at home? Like, do you have butter in the fridge, and then you have, like, say, butter in the cupboard?
And both are equally hard. And it was only until. Have you noticed? Did you notice this? Because I noticed it actually. I was like, Rob, this is a while back, but I remember trying to butter some toast or maybe some corn in the fall, and I'm thinking, my gosh, this isn't spreading as I recall it to be. But it was only when Buttergate itself reared its ugly head that I realized, you know what, there is a difference here. There is a problem. Yeah, there's something to it. There's something to it. Yeah, yep. Buttergate. So, international travel claims another victim. The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, what is he, the CEO, president, whatever the case might be? Big wig, big shot? Yeah. Mark Machin? Mark Machin is the chief of the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board. And this is the ones that they don't necessarily manage the bureaucracy, but they manage where they put the money. Yeah. And that's what he's up. And somehow he had what's being determined as he's describing as a very personal need to suddenly be in Dubai. Right. You got to wonder what the heck prompted him to do that. But he said it was deeply personal. And oh, by the way, while I'm there, I'm going to get my COVID vaccine shot. So he not only got a shot with COVID vaccine, but shot himself in the foot, and he resigned last night. What an unbelievable story. I mean, there's, it's one thing to be globetrotting when
We're running these public service announcements from the Ontario government here on the radio station that say, until everyone is vaccinated, Ontario, stay home as much as you can. So it's one thing to be globetrotting as the head of the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board. Flew to Dubai, right? Flew to Dubai. Who knows? Did he fly commercial? I don't know. Who knows how much he would make millions of dollars a year, no doubt about it. But nevertheless, it's one thing just to do the globetrotting thing, okay? That's one thing. When you're not supposed to and all the rest of us are told to stay home. But then you stay there because the United Arab Emirates, next to Israel, United Arab Emirates has the best vaccination program in the world, right? Like they've vaccinated the greatest percentage of their population than anyone else except Israel. So it's quite something else to just kind of stay there because you know you're going to be on the fast track to get a vaccine. Well, we have people who are Lowell's age. They have no idea when they're going to get a vaccine. They hope they're going to get a vaccine sometime before the end of March, right?
Yeah,
So.
and you know, Rob, last week we had the Ontario judge who was, dispensing judicial wisdom and decrees and what have you from some beach in the Turks and Caicos. We had Rod Phillips not so long ago, the Minister of Finance that was down in St. Bart's.
That's right.
He had to resign, and now you've got this. So it's not like this is sudden news to people that they shouldn't be flitting about and doing what they shouldn't be doing. And this Mark Machin, well, look, he's lost it. And, you have that other person, the St. Joe's, the head of the health board in Southern Ontario, who also had problems and had to resign. So
I still think that the one that takes the cake is the CEO of the great Canadian gaming company, who went to that remote community in the Yukon. Remember, they actually dressed up and pretended they worked at the motel in town. Do you remember that one?
I do. He and his wife or his girlfriend.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Gosh,
It's
some crazy
unfortunate.
stuff. Crazy stuff going on.
Can I just make a serious point, though, however?
Yeah.
Is that the messaging, like the Daily Dougs, the Daily Trudeau Cottage stuff, I really have no idea who the heck's listening to that stuff anymore. And people are just kind of muddling along, and they're waiting for their turn to get their vaccine. And that's been a mess unto its own. But the fact that you've got people in leadership in different areas of society that are flouting the rules for everyone else, I think most people, especially if you're a small business owner, a restaurant operator, a commerce, somebody that's got a small retail outlet, and they're trying so hard to make ends meet. They're really, really trying to keep their employees employed. They're trying to keep a roof over everybody's head. And the people are doing their best to social distance, to stay away from their neighbors, to do all that kind of stuff. And then you see these these people who should know better just simply flouting it, and it just is insult to injury.
What do you think about the price of gas? It's pretty crazy.
I saw $1.24 this morning in Canada. $1.24 at a Shell.
Yeah. That's what it is down here. Yeah, just around the corner from the radio station here in the South End.
I saw no cars at the Shell. I don't know if that's a sign of things. Well,
it's pretty expensive. I mean, oil is on the comeback, but it's still only $62. I mean, it's not like it's $100 oil, but that seems expensive to me, Pierre. I know it was tough for Alberta and tough for the economy in general when gas was like 60 cents a liter during the depths of the lockdown there back last year. But holy cow. $1.24 a liter.
I don't know where the demand is coming from. We're not all
it's almost like there's no morning rush hour to speak of right now. So
yeah. Hey, Rob, can I end on a quick note? I know you're pressed for time. You're going to talk to Rick Hillier. A friend of the community, Brian Fraser, has died. He fought publicly his battle with leukemia. He was a great advocate for donations of blood, and you'll know that I have a deep interest in that personally, and so I use that as leverage to suggest to our listeners that if you haven't yet donated blood recently, or it's something that's on your to-do list, or even better, on your bucket list, please consider doing that.
Well said, my friend. We'll talk to you next week. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's
Bye-bye.
Pierre Bourque of Bourque Newswatch. Retired General Rick Hillier coming up next.
I always knew I was going to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have a store. And I sort of figured when the right concept came together at the right time, I would move forward with that plan. And so through doing some environmental initiatives in the restaurant group that I was with prior to opening this store, it just triggered my path towards being more environmentally conscientious and wanting to make more of a difference, and hopefully encouraging, inspiring other people to want to do the same, at which point the idea for All Eco was born. I have some really fun products. I have a really wide spectrum of products. So the things we look for in terms of qualifying products are sustainably made, upcycled, recycled, zero waste, all natural, no harmful chemicals to like the environment or to our bodies. We have like fun stuff, so like really clean burning candles, lots of really natural body care and skin care. I put a real emphasis on Canadian products. I really try to support up and comers, and I always source Canada first. The refill bar is really important to me. It's really huge. I think that's been exciting as well, because I thought it was going to be a real process in convincing people that this is a better way to go. And actually it was just like right away there was a built-in affinity towards doing refill, which has been great. We closed, I think, probably we were closed down by before the second week of March. Just didn't feel we could comfortably or confidently stay open, even though I do sell essential products, like in terms of the cleaning. But we just didn't feel we could make a safe space for ourselves or our customers at that time, and especially with the information we had at the time. So we did close our doors, at which point I did not have a website, because that was I hadn't even scheduled myself to have a website at that point. So that was sort of like full speed moving towards that and trying to drive the business, at the same time still get myself on the map because I was so new. So during that time, as we were building the website, we were still doing a lot of video shopping and private shopping, online shopping, like online phone, text. Any way I could do business, I was doing it. And there was really a nice show of support for my business during that time, which was really, really encouraging. And now, we are fully set up online too.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
He is the person in charge of Ontario's vaccination rollout, and we learned a lot of details about that this week, and we're pleased to welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News retired General Rick Hillier. Good morning, sir.
Rob, good morning to you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
How would you say things are going so far here, General?
Well, I would say this, Rob. Thank you. Don't judge by what I say. Don't take my word. Just look at the numbers. We've got 650,000 people vaccinated in the province of Ontario. We had 25,000 vaccinations yesterday. We'll have more than that today. And despite province-wide, starting with the over 80 group on the week of 15 March, we probably have close to 100,000 of that group already done to the long-term care and retirement homes. And many of the public health units, they're empowered to do this. When they have finished the priorities above that or gotten to as many as they could, they can start in 80-year-olds. And many of the public health units are doing that today, tomorrow, Monday and Tuesday. And so getting at the population. So just have faith in the numbers that we've got 650,000 people vaccinated here. On the COVID tracker, that's just over 91% of the vaccines that we have received as of last Monday. And most of the ones remaining were ones that were being held back for second needles in the days to follow, which you had to ensure that you had. So I just say that, have confidence in those numbers.
Okay. What do you say to the government's critics that it's way too slow and they wonder what the government was doing over the last several months, General?
Well, we've been So, Rob, what I would say is simply this, we've been putting needles in arms in accordance with the vaccines that we get, and it's pointless to do a whole bunch of things like have people standing in a mass vaccination clinic ready to administer syringes or vaccines to people when we didn't have the vaccines or don't have enough of the vaccines. We're now getting more vaccines coming, and that first analogy, kind of like putting a soldier in the battle and saying you don't have any ammunition, so you all bang bang. We're not doing that. So now we're getting more vaccines, and as we get them, we will put them into people's arms. So the slowness of the program is completely related to the arrival of vaccines, and of course, the province of Ontario has no control over that whatsoever.
Okay, but how would you describe the current situation with supplies? Is it improving, sir?
Yes, it is. Absolutely, Rob. Yeah. Yesterday, I believe it was, we received 175,000 Pfizer vaccines in Ontario. And today we will receive 47,000 Moderna vaccines. Out of those Moderna vaccines, many of them are for the folks in those longer-term care homes and retirement homes for their second needles because they were getting Moderna first during the slowdown of Pfizer. And some of those Moderna are part of what we call Operation Remote Immunity, vaccinating the people in 31 fly-in communities across northern Ontario, primarily up near James Bay. Because where they're isolated, if you get a COVID case there, it becomes a great tragedy, and we want obviously to try and prevent that. So yes, the supply is improving. We have to rebuild our confidence that it's going to continue to do that, but I don't think that will be long occurring. And things are looking better where we are right now, and hopefully in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we'll look even better still.
Okay. I'm wondering if you can explain to our listeners kind of the thought process that went into this decision to leave a lot of the kind of the local planning up to the local public health units instead of having a more, say, centralized approach.
Well, we actually have a centralized plan with our mission, with the allocations, with the prioritization, with resources, including money and people supporting those public health units. The public health units have taken that plan and the information within it and the direction within it, and then they have articulated how they're going to execute that plan on the ground in their region of responsibility. And that's what they do best. There are 34 of those public health units. They have their own regions. They know the populations within those regions. They've been working for years, obviously, with those populations, and they know how to best vaccinate people and reach the populations that we want. And in fact, one of them said, hey, vaccines are us. That's who we are, and that's what we do. So I think it's the best combination of central planning and local empowered execution through those public health units, using all the resources, though, of the medical system in Ontario, not just those in the public health unit itself, but the hospitals, the pharmacies, primary care physicians and professionals, and using all those resources to come together. So I think it's actually the best combination, and the folks that are doing it, including the public health units, believe that also.
Okay. When do you think places like the local pharmacies or family physicians will find out, say, the finer details about their participation in the vaccination program?
Well, I've talked to quite a few of the medical associations of Ontario, so the OMA and the head of the OMA and a variety of other medical associations, and I talked to all the public health units and CEOs of hospitals yesterday and said, look, we've got all of these family doctors out there. Make sure they're inclusive in your plan. They want to form, in the words of one of them, they want to form SWAT teams, and in fact already have and done this to go into retirement homes, to go into congregate care living buildings and help vaccinate people who are, in some cases, their patients. And whilst we don't see yet that we will have vaccines go into doctors' offices because because the handling characteristics of Moderna and Pfizer, we have encouraged those doctors to work with the public health unit to actually form mass vaccination clinics themselves or be part of one, and invite their patients when their time is due to come to the vaccination clinic, to come to that vaccination clinic and get it. On Monday, we're running what we call a tabletop exercise with the pharmacies, and right after that, we'll start a pilot where we'll roll out, I think the number is about 10 pharmacies across Ontario for a couple of weeks, make sure we got the flow right, and then by the 1st of April, when we start to see the big doses arrive in Ontario, we'll have hundreds, if not several thousands of pharmacies ready to deliver the vaccine.
Okay. Some people are wondering if this plan isn't just too rigid along age lines, over 80, over 75, over 70, over 65, over 60, and maybe is not taking into account essential workers. And by that, I mean, people who aren't just in healthcare, but say, teachers or grocery store clerks or what have you, and maybe younger people who suffer from chronic conditions. How would you respond to that, sir?
The plan is not rigid, and I'll just give you an example. We have said that, the week of 15 March, we're going to start province-wide vaccinating 80 years old and above, and we're going to use the year of birth as opposed to the precise birth date. So, in other words, anybody born in 1941 or prior can now start to come forward and get their vaccinations. But what we do is go by the medical advice when those prioritizations are done and when the Ontario government gives us those prioritizations as direction, and that is the most at risk are those aged people, and particularly 80 plus years old. And when COVID-19 visits, it visits most and worse and most tragically on that group, and that's where we want to start, down to about the age of 60. And so we really want to get that population vaccinated quickly. That doesn't mean that concurrently we're not doing some of the other groups, as we will. Again, we are restricted by the vaccine flow, the vaccine arrival in Ontario. But the age groups are the most vulnerable to start with, and there's where we have had our focus. It's not exclusive. Let me just say, Rob, it's not exclusive. Okay. And we know there are smaller groups of folks, that you want to get to who have other characteristics and symptoms and comorbidities, I think the medical people call it. And so we want to get to those smaller groups as quickly as we can also, while we are concentrating on the age groups. But it's not inflexible. We actually have today people 80 years old and older who don't live in long-term care homes and retirement homes, in several of the public health units getting vaccinated because they are ready to do it. They've done the priorities above them as much as they can, and they have some vaccines available. And over tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, probably a dozen or more other public health units will start vaccinating those 80 years of age and older. So it's not rigid. It's very flexible. The public health units are empowered as long as they have the vaccines, and I've worked to the prioritization that's above that.
Prime Minister continues to insist most Canadians who want a vaccine by September will be able to get one. Do you think that's possible for people in Ontario?
Well, I hope so, but I don't know. It is totally vaccine dependent. As of 1 April, we'll have the entire machine turned on in Ontario, and our capacity will be somewhere around 300,000 per day, going through either mass vaccination clinics, pharmacies, or mobile clinics going into communities itself. We don't ever see an allocation or a forecast of vaccines arriving in Ontario that will use all of that capacity. And so we'd love to have enough to make sure every person in Ontario who is eligible, who wants a vaccine, be able to get it. I'm hopeful now that with the approval of Astrazeneca this morning, that was announced this morning, that we'll hear soon of arrivals of large numbers of doses of AstraZeneca, and that can allow us to perhaps go and focus on a different population group and get them done and complete with vaccinations, and maybe allow that to occur by all the population by September. It totally depends on the arrival of vaccines. If we get the vaccines, we'll get them into the arms, and we'll get the population vaccinated.
Okay. Thank you greatly for your time this morning, sir.
Rob, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. And look, can I just say to the folks in Ontario, have faith here. We have 650,000 people vaccinated. We had 25,000 vaccinations occur yesterday. We're going to do more than that today, and we're going to look after those people in most vulnerable circumstances. In one case, for example, we're going to respond to the outbreak in the homeless shelters in Toronto because we want to look after that sometimes desperate group of people who have so little in the world and give them some protection. And the vaccines are going into arms as they flow into Ontario. So there you go. We want more, and we hope that will arrive. And AstraZeneca perhaps is another bright light on the horizon in this fight against COVID-19. Thanks, Rob, for having me on.
Thank you again, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News. Now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 26th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 10 degrees. In Smiths Falls, minus 5. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Well, breaking news from Health Canada this morning, approving yet another COVID-19 vaccine for our country. City News reporter Joey Keeney with the details.
The Astrazeneca vaccine is the third to be given the green light for national use. Now, it's important to note that some countries, including France, have authorized the vaccine only for use in people under the age of 65, saying there is not enough evidence to say whether it works in older adults. Ottawa will provide a technical briefing later this morning explaining all the details about the approval and when we can expect to see some doses. Now, Canada has pre-ordered 20 million AstraZeneca doses, which was co-developed by Oxford University scientists. We're also getting 1.9 million more doses of the vaccine from COVAX, the international vaccine sharing program. Moderna and Pfizer's shots have already been approved in Canada, and so far we've administered about 1.7 million shots of vaccines in the country. From the Breaking News Desk, I'm Joey Keeney.
Now, after our provincial government revealed more details this week on the vaccination rollout, the head of Ontario's COVID-19 Vaccine Task Force, retired General Rick Hillier, defending the process in getting shots into people's arms. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Well, on the Rob Snow Show, retired General Hillier says they have been putting needles in arms in accordance with the number of vaccines the province is providing. He feels it's pointless to have people ready to vaccinate residents within a mass vaccination clinic while still awaiting additional shipments.
That personality, kind of like putting a soldier into battle and saying you don't have any ammunition, so you all bang, bang. We're not doing that. So now we're getting more vaccines, and as we get them, we will put them into people's arms.
He encourages people not to listen to what he says, but instead look at the numbers, which indicates at least 650,000 people have already gotten their jab within the province. Hillier also suggests doctors to work with public health units to form their own mass vaccination clinics. Alex Gouge, City News.
City News time, 10:03. We are getting the new numbers from the province this hour now. 1,258 new cases of COVID-19 and 28 more deaths in Ontario. 52 of the new cases are in Ottawa, 4 are in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 11 in Eastern Ontario, and 10 cases today in Renfrew. A traffic note this hour, water main break to be aware of in Carleton Place. Motorists asked to avoid the area as Public Works staff are trying to fix that break on Town Line Road East. It's unknown just how long that will take. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll have varying amounts of sun and cloud today, but a pretty good day overall. The high near zero. Tonight, mainly clear, just a light wind will drop to minus 10. It'll feel, though, like minus 16. And for the weekend, morning snow Saturday, changing over to rain showers will climb to 4 degrees. Showers or flurries for Sunday afternoon and evening with the high near plus 5. For today, the high 0.
And right now in Ottawa, minus 10. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 5 degrees. The man in charge of Canada Pension Plan Investments has resigned now after it came out that he traveled to Dubai and arranged for a COVID-19 vaccine while there. CPP Investments says Mark Machin tendered his resignation to the board last night. Queen Elizabeth is encouraging you to be vaccinated against COVID-19, saying the shot is quick and it's harmless. In a video call with officials responsible for rolling out the vaccine in Britain, the Queen says being vaccinated helps protect everyone, not just the person who gets the shot.
It is obviously difficult for people to, if they've never had a vaccine, because they ought to think about other people rather than themselves.
Now, the Queen and her husband, 99-year-old Prince Philip, received their first dose of vaccine just last month. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Friday free for all. So it's wide open. You pick the topics. I don't pick the topics. I have topics. If you don't call, I'll talk about my topics. I'd rather talk about your topics. 750-1310, 750-1310. Every single line is available right now. Have your say. It's the hottest radio in town, ladies and gentlemen. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. I was just looking at some of the data this morning. Where does Canada stand today compared to other countries in the world when it comes to actually getting people vaccinated? And look, it's good news, right? Astrazeneca approved. It took you long enough. But let's take a look. Okay, where do we stand today on vaccines? I use two sources. One is Our World in Data, and the other is the Bloomberg Vaccine Tracker. According to ourworldindata.org, the fine folks at Oxford University help to update this on a daily basis. I was looking at it around 4:30 this morning. Can you imagine? One metric is vaccine doses per 100 people in the population. Vaccine doses per 100 people in the population. In Israel, that number is now 90.1. For every 100 people in Israel, 90 and then a tenth of another person have received the vaccine. 90.1, leading the world by a long shot. Okay. The next best country in terms of this metric, United Arab Emirates, where the head of the CPP-IB got his vaccine and then resigned as the head of the CPP-IB. United Arab Emirates, 58.2. Then it's the UK. 27.86. Then it's the United States. 19.87. In Canada, the number is an all-time high, 4.38. 4.38. So not exactly a world beater, okay? Now, the Trudeau government vows that in the coming weeks and months, we're going to witness a dramatic comeback. And any and all problems associated with the vaccine program so far, they will be but a distant memory. I guess the question is, how many people will get sick and how many more will die between now and then? We still trail, I will point out, such countries as Bahrain, Chile, Serbia, Denmark, Turkey, Switzerland, Poland, Romania, Morocco, Spain, Germany, Italy, France. And then there's a big raw number, which is just total doses. Total doses. Okay, how many doses altogether? Our World in Data has the United States out in front, 63 million doses administered. The UK, 18.3 million. India, 11.4 million. Israel, slightly more than 7.2 million. Brazil, almost 7 million. Turkey, 6.5 million. UAE, 5.5 million. Germany, more than 5 million. France, 3.7 million. Italy, 3.5 million. Canada's number, 1.5 million. All according to Our World in Data. 1.5 million doses, total doses of two-dose vaccines, administered in 74 days. 74 days. Now let's go to this Bloomberg vaccine tracker. The United States, according to the Bloomberg vaccine tracker, is averaging 1.3 million doses a day. A day. Here, 1.5 million doses in 74 days. And these are now the individual U.S. states that have done more doses than all of Canada. It is a list that keeps getting longer. California, Texas, Florida, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, Michigan, Georgia, New Jersey, Virginia, Arizona, Massachusetts, Washington State, 14 U.S. states. The U.S., as I said, 1.3 million doses a day. The U.K. is averaging 342,000 doses a day. Bangladesh is averaging 143,000 doses a day. In Canada, Bangladesh, 143,000 doses a day. In Canada, according to the Bloomberg Vaccine Tracker, the number is now averaging 48,925 a day. Let's call it 49,000 and call it a day. Okay? It has improved. It has improved. Now, another metric that the Bloomberg Vaccine Tracker uses is how long it's going to take to achieve herd immunity, which is 75% of the population is fully vaccinated. The global rate, when you take all the countries and you put all the data together, it comes out 5.1 years. 5.1 years. In the United States, 10 months. In the UK, 7 months. In the UAE, 5 months. Israel, 1 month. Canada, 3 years at current rates. Okay? 3 years to achieve herd immunity, which is actually a big improvement in just the last couple of weeks. But, I mean, it's 2 years behind some of our peer countries, right? Behind some of our peer countries. We have new audio from the Premier, Doug Ford. This is Premier Ford reacting to the Astrazeneca approval. This is from Cynthia Mulligan at City News, Toronto.
I think it's the best news we've heard in a real long time. And the two questions we need answered is when we're getting it and how much we're getting. But we're geared up, we're ready to go, and just can't wait to get the third vaccine. And looking forward to possibly a fourth or fifth vaccine as well.
Okay, geared up and ready to go, the Premier says. Okay, geared up and ready to go. 750-1310, 750-1310. It's the Rob Snow Show. It's the Friday free-for-all. It's the Talkback Hour. You call me, and I listen. Greg in Orleans. Good morning, Greg.
Morning, Rob. How are you doing?
Good, sir. How you doing?
It's beautiful winter day.
Good, good.
I wanted to hit two things.
Sure.
You just were talking about the Bloomberg tracker.
Yeah.
Earlier this week, you guys were playing with some numbers. I'm not going to point any fingers. And there's something that kind of, when I see it, it worries me, and that is that sometimes we think that 75%, that means 75% of the people that can actually get the vaccine, and it's actually meant for the entire population. So we know that we can't give it to people under the age of 18 yet, and that I can't seem to find the right metric.
Okay.
I think the numbers are out there,
right,
but that sits roughly about 16% of the population right there.
Okay.
And I've seen a couple different polls reporting about different people saying that maybe they don't want to take the vaccine for whatever personal choice, that's their choice.
Sure.
And that ranges from 1 in 6 to 1 in 10.
Yeah. Most of the polls I've seen, it's about 10% of the population.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So that puts us really close to not even being able to reach herd immunity. Right? We're sitting at 16% plus 10%. Hopefully it's 10% or even less.
So you're up to 26%. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not great. So, just a little plug out there. Her Majesty the Queen, I'll follow what she said.
Sure.
Go and roll down and roll up your sleeve, get poked.
Yeah, absolutely, right? absolutely, sir. It's great points that you make, and it's funny that you would raise that. And thank you for your call, Greg. I was kind of playing around with the numbers this morning, and look, I'm no math whiz, right? But let's take the Trudeau government at its word, and then be even more charitable, okay? And let's give them the benefit of the doubt, even though they don't deserve it. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt that there's going to be a dramatic comeback. And look, we may be already seeing it, a big change in fortune, okay, with big shipments on the way and whatever problems are quickly going to be sorted out. Ship's about to be righted. Incredible comeback a la Hamburglar, okay? And soon enough, Canada will be doing as well as any other country in the world. And let's use as our measuring stick, we want to be doing as well as the United States. The United States, herd immunity in 10 months. Okay? Herd immunity in 10 months. So by the end of December. So I'm going to give the Trudeau government until December, New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve is in 308 days. 308 days. Okay? Now, to the caller's point, the population of Canada is 38 million. But 6 million people are under the age of 15. So let's just set them aside because we're not going to give it to them. Probably not anytime soon. They're going to be very last in line if they get it at all. So that leaves you with 32 million people, right? And we've already given one dose to 1.5 million people. So that leaves 30.5 million people. But our goal is not 100%. Our goal is 75%. 75% of 30.5 million is actually 22.85 million. Let's round it up and call it 23 million. And let's be charitable and let's just use one dose instead of two because it appears one dose is pretty effective. So using all of those numbers, again, no math genius here, but it means we have to be vaccinating 74,675 people every day for the next 308 days between now and New Year's Eve. 74,675 people every day have to get at least one shot. That's 522,000 a week. It's 2 million a month. Just to get one dose into 23 million people. The Canadian population is 38 million. And we're being kind. These are 2-dose vaccines. We're just giving people one dose, more than 74,000 a day. And right now we haven't had one day where we've hit 50,000. We're not quite there yet. We're not quite there yet. And to get 23 million people fully vaccinated, and otherwise to use these vaccines as they were designed, 2 doses, well, that's 46 million doses that you need. So then you're looking at 150,000 doses every day between now and New Year's Eve. More than 1 million doses a week, more than 4 million doses a month. And right now we're doing 343,000 a week, 1.3 million a month. The U.S. is doing 1.3 million a day. We're doing 1.3 million a month. Okay? It's getting better, but it has to get a lot better than it is. I'll be right back. Rob Snow Show, City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, it's got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong products, you didn't price your items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain were I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying. And then I shut my business down for, I think, a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries. Started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Carp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. We've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours and hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting. And anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not COVID's in the mix or not. But more so now, because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff. And again, their situations and their circumstances change.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show.
The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Friday free-for-all. Talkback hour. On our magnificent shipbuilding program, Roger in Drummond has called. Go ahead, Roger.
Good morning, Rob.
Yes, sir.
I want to go back in time just for a minute there. I just need a few minutes for this. But during the Maroney era, back in the 80s, he commissioned a shipbuilding program there for those 12 frigates that's been prying the oceans for a long time, and pound for pound they have outdone any other nation. Now, back in the 80s there, that program was going to cost about $3.8 billion for those 12 frigates, and it ended up costing $10 billion. Interest rates were through the roof, okay? Now, we'll go up to the Harper era there when he started the shipbuilding program, and I was under the understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, I thought it was about $28 billion.
$26 billion originally, yeah.
Okay, $26 billion, Yeah. Now, I've been hearing about cost overruns there from the Liberals there saying it's going to be $13 billion over budget. It's going to cost $70 billion, and some of these ships won't be coming out for, like you say, the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Now, there's three major shipbuilding things in Canada.
That's right.
One of them is in BC. I don't know the name of that, but there's the Davie Shipyards in Quebec.
That's right.
And there's Irving Shipyard in New Brunswick.
All accurate so far, yep.
Now, I don't know how, I've been around for a long time, Rob, and I spend a lot of time looking at defense budgets for many countries,
Okay.
Now, how in God's name would it take all those years to build those ships? Like, can each shipyard not build one or two ships at a time?
Incredible, yeah.
Incredible, yeah. And I know these are pretty complicated things,
Yeah.
Would 3 years?
Well, part of it is the people at D&D keep saying, change this, change that, make the ship bigger, give it this, give it that. And another thing is the law. If it takes 10 years to build a ship or 20 years to build a ship, well, the price of steel goes up, the price of electronics, the technology changes, everything else, right? If you started building a ship 20 years ago, some of the technology is going to be obsolete before the boat ever launches. So,
but you see, Rob, I would say at the most per ship, I would say about 3 years, and I'm sure each shipyard could probably build two ships for a start. Go back to even to the Second World War when we didn't even have a damn navy, and then all of a sudden we were pumping out these ships like a couple of dozen a month in all the shipyards in Canada.
Right.
So what's wrong with this country?
You know what? It's such a good point you make. If people know the history of this country after the Second World, we have one of the largest navies in the world. Third largest navy in the world, right?
Third largest, Rob.
And look at the state of it now. We might not even have any ships.
And with our technology, and we're smart people in Canada, Rob. We've always punched well above our weight. What is actually going on? Is this just being systematically sabotaged or something? I can't see anything that makes any sense why this is going on.
It's incompetence. Incompetence.
Can I say one thing about the Conservatives, Rob?
Yeah, very quickly, yeah.
Well, as far as Aaron O'Toole's concerned, this is the time to rise up and show what kind of a leader you are. You got to nip this crap in the bud with these religious fanatics and their bigot attitude.
Okay. Thank you, Roger. Thank you. I'll have more to say about that, what's going on. The attempted coup. I don't know. Some people are viewing it that way. You won't believe what they're planning for this policy convention, and I mean, largely they've succeeded so far. I'll talk about it a little more after the news. I want to get some calls in here. Jeff in Athens, Ontario. Jeff. Morning, Jeff. I think Jeff is a farmer, and he is in a barn right now, I believe, because he wants to talk about butter. Jeff, are you there? Jeff going once? Jeff going twice? Nope. Okay. We'll put him on hold. All right. What one do you want to take now, David? Line 3? How about line 3? You want to try line 3? Let's try line 3. Richmond, Jerry. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning.
Yes, Jerry.
Well, I'll tell you, this is the first time I've called you, Rob, but I must admit I followed you for years and years and years, but this COVID vaccine has caught my eye. We have, I believe, a black hole, and the black hole is that we do not know what the government contracts to the various organizations actually called out for quantities and deliveries.
Yes. Yes.
So if we're sitting here trying to figure out how many shots we're going to receive, put in people's arms, etc., do you not think we absolutely need to know what those contracts called for?
It would be nice to know the so-called deliverables, Jerry. I agree with you. And
and so I hear everybody on the radio talking and comparing us to other countries and states, etc.
Yep.
But the Canadian people should be aware of what actually got ordered and when it's due.
Yes. And how much we're paying for it, all of that material. Yes.
So my question, Rob, because you're smarter than I am.
I doubt that, but thank you for the compliment anyway. But
how do we get that information?
Well, Parliament is, the opposition MPs are passing motions right now at committee levels and in the House to try and get that information for you. Now, when they did that with the We Charity scandal, there was a big document dump, but all the documents were blacked out.
Exactly, and I don't think redacted documents should be available. I think we should get the actual contracts. I worked 47 years in contracting, and I can tell you, whenever a client has asked for a contract, they get a copy of it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for your call, sir, and thank you for your being a first-time caller to the Rob Snow Show. We love hearing that around here. To Canada. Heather. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning.
Hi, Heather. You want to talk about drones today?
Yes. Last week a lady called in. I think she was in Orleans.
Yes.
Talking about drones.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she's listening, and maybe you can get her back today.
Okay.
We have seen them in the Glencairn area in Canada.
Yeah.
They're in the shape of a large black bird. There are about 4 or 5 of them hovering, and the wings do not flap.
Right. Okay.
They just go around and around.
Well, her point was she believes that they're being used to kind of scope out property and spy on people so that it makes it easier for thieves to commit property crimes. That's what she...
Yeah, that's right.
Do you think the same thing is going on in Glencairn in Canada?
I don't know, Rob. I'm not sure, but we have seen them, and I'm just wondering if she can give us the shape.
Oh, the shape. Okay. Well, I'll put it out there. If she's listening, she's more than welcome to call, ma'am. So.
Okay. Thanks for taking my call.
Yep. Okay. It's interesting. You know, I received some email after the program last week and referencing that call from that concerned citizen in Orleans who said she's exactly right. And, there have actually been investigations and arrests and charges laid related to that very activity in Eastern Ontario, drones being used to scope out properties and commit property crimes. It's not wild and crazy and not tinfoil hat stuff, not at all. We'll be back right after the news. Downtown James, we'll get to your call. Keith in the Pontiac today, all ahead. I have a phone line for you. It's Friday Free for All. We've hit halftime here on City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 26th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 6 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 3. Here's what's making news this hour. Canada has another COVID vaccine approved by Health Canada. This morning, the agency gave the thumbs up to the Oxford and Astrazeneca shot for people over the age of 18. 20 million doses of the Astrazeneca vaccine have been pre-ordered already by the federal government. The head of the vaccine task force, retired General Rick Hillier in our province, says they have been putting needles in the arms of people in accordance with the number of vaccine the province has been provided. He feels it is pointless to have people ready to vaccinate residents within a max vaccination clinic while we're still waiting for additional shipments. The person in charge of CPP Investments has resigned, the board receiving that news last night after Mark Machin revealed he had traveled to Dubai for personal reasons and also received a shot of COVID vaccine while out of the country. Machin says in a memo to staff at CPP he's disappointed his private trip became the focus of public attention. City News Time at 10:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
I want to... It's a Friday free-for-all, first of all. 750-1310. Wide open on the phone lines. Get back to the calls in just a minute. But I just want to tell you to keep an eye on strife in conservative circles. There is trouble within the Conservative Party of Canada, folks. I started hearing some rumblings about this week. And now it's been blown wide open in the news media. A lot of the political media in Canada loves nothing more than to see conservatives brawl with other conservatives. There is a move by some social conservatives to seriously undermine Erin O'Toole because they feel betrayed. This is becoming par for the course in conservative politics, particularly in leadership politics, both at the national level and provincially here in Ontario. Erin O'Toole is just the latest to pull the fast one. Patrick Brown did the same thing. Doug Ford did the same thing. You have to woo religious conservatives, landowner conservatives as well. It's hard to win a conservative leadership nationwide or here in Ontario without some support from what are called the SOCONs. Okay? They're very well organized. Church congregations, very good organizing organisms. And if you're a candidate in a conservative leadership race and you want to win, you're not going to turn your back on any votes, especially the down ballot votes in a ranked ballot system, okay? It was one of the keys to victory for Erin O'Toole. You know that because being that second choice. Because a lot of the people on the religious right would never vote for Peter MacKay. They thought he was too wishy-washy. They were willing to give Erin O'Toole the benefit of the doubt because he was pitching himself as what? I'm the true blue guy. And then he became the leader and he changed his tune. Then he was the pragmatic centrist. And he's not the first to do that. He won't be the last to do it. But depending on how all of this shakes out, this battle that's going on, Erin O'Toole might not be around very long, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you. The Conservative Party of Canada could be in a whole heap of trouble because of what's going on. They couldn't wait to get rid of Andrew Scheer fast enough. Even though he grew the seat count, he grew the vote count, he just couldn't get it across the finish line. Conservatives had more votes. They had a higher percentage of the vote than the Liberals. But in Canada, it's where you get the votes. right? He couldn't break through in Atlantic Canada, couldn't break through in Quebec, couldn't break through in Ontario. So in the end, Trudeau kept the job. Andrew Scheer lost his job. And Aaron O'Toole, Mr. True Blue, convinced enough social conservatives that it helped him win the leadership of the party over Peter MacKay. And then came the Derek Sloan problem, the latest one. And Aaron O'Toole finally turfed him for that donation from that notorious white supremacist. They tossed him out of the caucus, said, you're not allowed to run again. But what has been happening since is a lot of people think that's not the real reason that Derek Sloan was tossed. That Derek Sloan and his allies in the social conservative movement, the real reason he was tossed is because he's been organizing all across the country, in ridings all across the country, trying to stack the upcoming Conservative Policy Convention with delegates of their own liking. And that's the real reason that the Conservatives tossed Derek Sloan out on his keister. And when they did that, they angered the religious Conservatives even more. And they just ratcheted up their organizing. See, to take part and vote on resolutions at this policy convention just a few weeks from now, it starts on the 18th of March. To vote, you have to be a delegate. And to be a delegate, you have to be elected, more or less, right? So people on the religious right, they've been organizing. They have been making sure to win these local delegate elections. The Hill Times is a big rundown on this morning. The religious right, Campaign Life Coalition, for example, they've picked off a few high-profile, what I would call establishment conservatives who had hoped to be delegates at this convention. Like Irving Gerstein, who used to run the Conservative Fund of Canada. James Dodds runs the Conservative Fund right now. Mark Mulrooney, of those Mulrooneys. Stephen Lecce, Education Minister in Ontario. I even heard, this is not in the Hill Times, I heard this through the grapevine, that John O'Toole, Aaron O'Toole's father, fell victim to this. He was running to be a delegate, but he was defeated by a SOCON campaign. He was an MPP for like 2 decades. His son leads the party, for crying out loud. So this has some conservatives talking to me. They're worried. They're worried that this policy convention is going to happen next March and the room is going to be filled with delegates from the religious right. I suppose fair and square, they had these delegate elections for a reason, and Campaign Life Coalition, groups like that, better organized. But the fear is there are going to be all manner of religious right-wing resolutions that are going to carry the day and become Conservative Party policy. And they're just giving rounds and rounds of ammunition to the Liberals for endless attack ads, because they're going to come out with stuff that's like really tough on gay rights, come down hard on abortion, come down hard on conversion therapy, immigration, burqa bans, this kind of stuff. And the more moderate conservatives are going to be drowned out. And this is going to end up looking, and certainly it will be portrayed by the Liberals as, oh, the conservatives, they're the party of the Bible thumpers. And hopes that Aaron O'Toole, that he would somehow reshape this party as centrist and attract blue liberals, classical liberals, potential swing voters. Just forget about that. Moderate, business-minded, small government, low-tax types, fiscal conservatives are going to be forgotten, and the party is going to fall victim to hardline social conservatism. Tanya Granick-Allen, Derek Sloan. I'm telling you right now, the end result of that, it would be a massive majority government for the Liberal Party of Canada. And I mean massive, massive, massive. Okay? It might be a victory. Tanya Granick-Allen, Derek Sloan, they might view it as a great win for them. They must love being in opposition. They must love Justin Trudeau to do that to the Conservative Party of Canada, because they are just ensuring term after term after term of Liberals. And that's maybe my last rant of the week. Downtown James. Good morning, James.
Morning, Rob. Sympathies to you and David for your loss. Your friend Brian.
Thank you, sir.
everyone should do blood donations in his honor. The web portal for vaccinations, the amount of misinformation that's being spread by the opposition parties and some of the media in Toronto, etc., is atrocious. Right? There's no need for this web portal for mass vaccinations in the next 2 weeks. Like, people are implying that there's no vaccinations going on in the next 2 weeks, and that it's just all going to sit in freezers, which is totally not true. We know that even John Fraser was standing up, pounding the table, saying no one's going to get vaccinated in Ottawa because of the no web portal, and he knows very, very well that some neighborhoods in his own riding, Ledbury, etc., are all being vaccinated next week for the over 80s.
Exactly.
The public health units are vaccinating in Ottawa, over 80s in Ottawa, York, Wellington, Simcoe County, Waterloo County, Windsor, and Haldimand, Norfolk. That's the ones that I know of. I'm sure there's more. So there's no wasted vaccines the next 2 weeks. So the amount of information out there, and it's terrifying people that there's nothing going on in the next 2 weeks, which is simply not true. And then ETFO, the teachers union, put out a press release saying yesterday that the Ford government downloaded vaccinations, as some shock, downloaded vaccinations to the PHUs.
Right.
The public health units vaccines are us. So there's no downloading going on. Everyone knew the public health units were the ones going to be doing the vaccinations.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that there's a lot of misinformation for political reasons in the last few days, which is just getting people more stressed out unnecessarily. And that's my little
good one, James. Good to hear from you, sir.
Very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You
Bye-bye.
too, sir. Thank you. Shawville, Keith. Good morning, sir.
Good day. How's it going?
Everything's fine and dandy here, sir.
Well, I'm a little bit depressed.
You are?
Yeah. Well, I'm a moderate conservative.
Okay.
Anyways, what I was going to bring up is how the popularity of the different parties is how Canadians don't seem to respect integrity at all.
Right.
This past government, and I can't believe that they're still so popular. National.
Well, I mean, they've come down in support. The puzzling thing is, and what a lot of people say, those of us on the more right side of things, Keith, are wondering is why has this not been of any benefit to the official opposition, the Conservatives?
Yeah, well,
they've not moved the needle at all.
No,
okay.
Well, that's a quandary. Right. And my other point was they should, a little bit humorous, they should bring back Admiral Mark Norman.
Well,
he was trying to fix the situation with the ships.
That's right, and they
investigated him.
That's right, and they tried to ruin his career and drummed him out of the Navy. Right, so
right. I mean, that's ridiculous. I guess they must have been a pretty good settlement, because I was hoping to hear after, maybe he would write a book about this, but they probably can't disclose anything with the...
No, I don't believe so. I believe there's some kind of confidential agreement there, right? So
that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, if Gilbert and Sullivan were still alive, they'd be writing an opera.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah.
And one last thing is, when you have Professor Lee on, something came out, Stats Canada is not measuring inflation correctly.
I'm going to ask him about that next week.
Yeah, so it's really one...
Yeah, we're doing a big thing next week on interest rates, inflation. There's a lot of things happening on the big picture side of the Canadian economy right now.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks very much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Just to highlight, the problems with the Conservative Party right now, you have... you would think Trudeau's numbers would suffer, right? And they have. They've come down... but it's been of no benefit to the Conservatives at all. The needle has not moved. If anything, they're losing support. Angus Reid, these are the last, how many polls here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The last 5 polls. Angus Reid has the Conservatives at 31. Leger has them at 29. Ipsos has them at 30. Abacus has them at 31. And Innovative has them at 28. This party, I am telling you right now, the Conservative Party of Canada, as it stands right now, does not have a chance of forming even what would be a doomed minority government with those kinds of numbers. They will lose seats and lose votes compared to Andrew Scheer's Conservative Party. This is a party that needs to grow, right? O'Toole knows that. He's no dummy. He knows that 30% is not going to get the job done. It might cost him his job. He knows he needs to do well on Election Day, where Doug Ford does well, where Stephen Harper did so well in 2011 when he won that majority government, where all of those seats are outside of downtown Toronto. Okay, that ring around Toronto. He needs to do well with new Canadians. He needs women voters, okay? He needs people under 35. He needs Atlantic Canadians and a few dozen seats in Quebec. A party of the religious right, I tell you right now, wins no seats in Quebec. None. Aucun, okay? A party that takes a hard line on abortion, wants to drag the country back into that debate again, will not, I repeat, will not attract women voters. It will turn off a lot of male voters, too. A party that takes a hard line on gay rights, gay marriage, you are doomed to the fringes of political Canada. And this is why a lot of conservatives are freaking out right now. This policy convention could be the end of this version of the Conservative Party. And I don't think I am understating how serious it is. We're back in a minute with more of your calls. This is City News.
When you've lost your breasts, you've sort of lost part of yourself. And then all at once you're losing your hair. You don't know who you are anymore. You want to feel like yourself again. So I think that the store, a mastectomy store, is essential because you've lost your identity. And then all at once, you're looking for a wig, you need a headscarf, you need a camisole. There's nowhere to go. There's no one to talk to. This should be essential because there are more and more women that are getting breast cancer. I think it's 1 in 6. They're becoming younger. I have a client that's 18 years old. And where do they go? They need a place like this that the women that work there understand. They know what you're going through. It's changed quite a bit. Our hours are different. We're now open from 10 to 5. We're not as busy as we were. A lot of women are afraid to go out. They're afraid that maybe there are more people in the store. So that's why I try and let them know you are alone. There's absolutely nobody in the store except you and I. If there is a woman that she's very afraid, I will lock the door to make sure nobody else comes in. I'll put a sign back in 10, 15 minutes just to give her that reassurance. Before we would have 4, 5, 6 people in the store. We didn't have to turn anybody away. Now we do. Some clients do leave and they're upset because they're in the store. They said, you know, we drove 20 minutes and now we're not allowed in the store. And I try to make them understand that there's somebody in here that's going through chemo or radiation. So that's sort of changed a lot, that we're not able to have more people in the store.
If we're talking about products, there's the bras that are adapted for mastectomy. The bathing suits that are adapted to mastectomy. We have special camisoles as well, and post-surgery bras. And then we have, for women going through chemo, the wigs that we have a big selection in the store as well. We have scarves. Some women don't feel comfortable wearing a wig. They prefer to wear a scarf or a hat, so we have a huge selection of that as well. We offer compression garments as well. When you're going through a mastectomy, you might have lymphedema in your arms after a couple of years, and you have flare-ups. So we have the sleeves, the hand as well that can be covered. We show each other's our scar. We talk about the treatments, how we felt, and I guess that's what they're looking for here. That's what makes us special. We have an added value in this store. Besides everything that's in the store, that's a product that can handle any problem that a client might have. Me and Linda, we've been through. We know how it feels in our bodies.
Back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show.
The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
The Rob Snow Show, ottawa.citynews.ca. Jamie emails very pleasantly. A few weeks ago, I emailed you and said I could not support the Conservatives because there were a number of Trump supporters and extreme right SoCon rights in the party, even some higher ups in the party from political pundits like Rex Murphy, Conrad Black. Stephen Harper Trump supporters, and you ridiculed me on the air. And today I find out about the religious right within the party. Next time, don't be a bunch of a-holes. Actually, Jamie, that's not what you said. You know that's not what you said. You said Brian Mulroney. You called Brian Mulroney an extreme right socially conservative. That's what you called him. And that's why I ridiculed you last time, and it's why I will ridicule you today, Jamie. But thank you for your email. Keep them coming. Eric in Barrhaven. Go ahead, Eric.
Morning, Rob.
Hi.
So, I mean, the news on the Conservatives is depressing.
Yes.
I think I've got something that will even trump that for you.
Oh, no. Really?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
you let me know at the end of this call.
All right.
Talking with my son, who's in New Jersey, as you know.
New Jersey.
So
New Jersey, one of the states that has vaccinated more people than the entire country of Canada.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's talk on the street in small town New Jersey. And the talk on the street is that, and it's widespread, is that there's going to be a reluctance on the part of the U.S. government to open up that border between us when there's such a discrepancy between vaccinations in the U.S.
Sure. Why would we want Canadians in the U.S.? Why would we want Canadian truck drivers or anyone crossing the border from Canada into the United States? They're not vaccinated yet.
Absolutely. So if nothing else scares you in this life, and if you have a reason to go anywhere in the U.S., know that they're going to be watching you like a hawk, and that scares me.
Isn't that interesting?
So, you know, there's you can get smug about not having as many cases. You can get smug about not having as many deaths. You get smug about a lot of things, but you know, once their system starts rolling, it rolls. And ours is not going to. I mean, it hasn't started rolling. And I enjoyed the comment by General Hillier this morning, who said, you know, you don't, with respect to these clinics, you don't put soldiers on the battlefield
without ammunition
and expect them to go bang bang.
That's right.
Because it's a waste of resources, a waste of lives. So. I'll just leave it there. It's
I know it's a great point. I didn't even think about that, Eric. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you again. Yep. Bye. Rodney.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Just up after Eric. Okay.
Right into it, buddy. Right into it. Let's get right into it.
Let's get right into it. My overview of the government's handling of the pandemic from the beginning.
All right. What government? What government are you talking about?
The Canadian government.
The Trudeau government?
Not picking a party, but the working function or the non-working function of the government.
The government. Okay.
All right.
Yes.
So it's sort of like watching an old World War I, World War II movie, the analogy that I'd like to paint. And you know, during those movies, or during that point in time, what was really important was that they had little newsreel clips before the movies where information was given out because they didn't have TV.
Right, yeah. The old newsreels, right? Okay. The newsreel, propaganda films, whatever, sure.
So in this movie, it's a World War I, World War II type movie, and we're into the theater of operations, and there's a very large table laid out with a big map of Canada laid out on the table, and there's a whole ring of people around it. There's politicians,
sure,
medical people.
Yeah, there's Trudeau, and there's Hillier, and there's Ford, and okay.
And I'm having trouble actually seeing everything on the map, but I can see airports marked out. I can see coastal things. I can see different, installations. And the other thing is, it's such an old movie that everybody's smoking. There's pipes, there's cigars, and I'm actually having trouble, seeing the map. And the other thing that's happening is everybody's fighting and arguing and bickering.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the newsreel commentator comes in, and it should be Dan Aykroyd doing this because he sort of likes that sort of field of operations. The newsreel commentator comes in and indicates, and Canada is starting off to a very dismal start to the pandemic and handling the pandemic, as they seem to be arguing and getting nowhere until the very next day, and the music starts changing and the lights get brighter, and we leave theater of operations and we go to the Parliament, and the different politicians are meeting in the center of the.
How does the movie end, Rodney? We got to roll the credits, buddy. Come on.
Okay, so give me a moment. So, what ends up happening is the different politicians come up to each other and say, until this pandemic is over, we're going to work in one unified.
Sure. Kumbaya.
Yeah, and we're going to battle this together. And when the pandemic's over, we're going to go back and show which party is the best party, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Thank you, Rodney. Have a good weekend. What he said. Marie.
Good morning, Rob.
Yes, ma'am. What's on your
mind? Kind of a tough day. When I listened to all your comments this morning, and you know what? You're right on the mark. And you know where I stand, and I've been in this party, Conservative Party, for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, this is one of the toughest for, because we just don't, between elections, just sit down and do nothing. We, you keep up to date or whatever.
Sure.
But I'm going to tell you something. I have emailed Aaron O'Toole 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave up on the Hill office, so I started his constituent. I have yet to get as much as an acknowledgement that they received, and it's not just me. But I get emails every day for donations, for this, for that, and surveys, and what do you think? But we never find out what the result was.
Sure.
This is sad. It's really, really sad. Our Conservative government should be walking into this election wiping out the Liberal government. And I don't even know if we can get that far, as I think the vote is going to be very high for the Liberals.
Well, let's say Derek Sloan and Tanya Granick-Allen and the Social Conservatives succeed, passing all these party resolutions that are very steeped in the religious right, okay, about abortion and pro-life and gay marriage, whatever the case might be, right? What do you think the Liberals are going to do with that kind of stuff? They're not going to say Aaron O'Toole has a hidden agenda. It won't even be hidden. It'll just be, this is the agenda. They passed it at their policy convention.
Exactly.
Right? So,
and it's not if all this is going to happen at the convention. It is.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem.
It's really, really sad. I was sitting here this morning thinking, how much I'd like to disagree with what Rob's comments were, but you can't. You can't.
No.
The last email I wrote to him was about Pierre Poilievre. I couldn't, and many of us couldn't understand, why now, Mr. O'Toole? Why did you take him out of finance now when you know there's an election around the corner? And nothing. Absolutely not. Pierre answered back as I sent him a copy. I copied him on the email.
Okay.
But
all right.
Anyway, no, it's really, really sad, and I don't know right now what we could even do to pull it out, to be honest with you.
We'll see what happens, Marie. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye-bye. Thank you for all of your calls on this Friday morning. Greatly appreciated. The 11 o'clock news coming up, and then more vaccine news on a Friday morning. Rob Snow Show, City News.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 26th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, -6 degrees. It's -3 in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and in the Valley. We have breaking news this morning. Health Canada has given the green light for another COVID-19 vaccine to be used in the country. We get more from City News reporter Joey Keeney.
The Astrazeneca vaccine was okayed this morning. It was co-developed by Oxford University scientists, becoming the third vaccine to be approved in Canada after Pfizer's and Moderna's. Now, some countries like France aren't convinced that the shot works in older adults, so they've only approved it for people under 65 years old. Belgium taking it a step further, only approving it for people under 55. And we're waiting to hear from Ottawa later this morning for a briefing which will shed some more light on the approval and when we can expect shipments. Canada pre-ordered 20 million doses of the AstraZeneca drug on top of another 1.9 million we're getting from the global sharing initiative COVAX. So far, Canada's been lagging behind other countries. We've only given out about 1.7 million shots of vaccines. From the Breaking News Desk, I'm Joey Keeney.
City News Time, 11:01. The latest numbers of COVID infection in Ontario shows 1,258 more cases and 28 more deaths. Province-wide, the new cases come from 64,000 completed tests. 52 of the new cases are in Ottawa. 4 of them are in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 11 in Eastern Ontario region, and 10 in Renfrew. In the hotspots, 362 new cases in Toronto, 274 in Peel. Movie theaters reopened in Ottawa today. Jill Monroe, the general manager of Cineplex in South Keys, says it will be safe for you to go to the movies.
We have reserved seating throughout all of the auditoriums in order to maintain social distancing. We have enhanced cleaning measures in place where all the auditoriums are cleaned in between every set of shows. All touch points are cleaned every 30 minutes.
She says it will be showing 4 movies this weekend. Monroe says you can also rent out a private movie night for you and up to 15 people. If you head to the movies, you are allowed to buy popcorn in Ottawa. Leeds Grenville Lanark Health Unit is asking you to be vigilant around COVID-19. They've been getting reports of a number of different scams going on. They say you should be cautious when on social media, answering phone calls, and on email as well. If you think anything is suspicious, you can contact police or call Crime Stoppers. City News Time, 11:03. A water main break to be aware of in Carleton Place today. Public Works staff are working to fix a break on Town Line Road East. It's unknown how long it's going to take to fix it, but you're asked to avoid that area. Now with your forecast, here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
We'll have varying amounts of sun and cloud today, but a pretty good day overall. The high near 0. Tonight, mainly clear, just a light wind will drop to -10. It'll feel, though, like -16. And for the weekend, morning snow Saturday, changing over to rain showers will climb to 4 degrees. Showers or flurries for Sunday afternoon and evening with the high near +5. For today, the high 0.
And right now in Ottawa, -6. In Smiths Falls, it's -3. Queen Elizabeth is encouraging you to be vaccinated against COVID-19. She says the shot is quick and will help protect others against the virus.
It was quite harmless. It was very quick. And I've had lots of letters from people who've been very surprised by how easy it was to get the vaccine. And the jab it didn't hurt at all.
The 94-year-old compared the effort that has gone into Britain's national vaccination campaign to the way people worked together during the Second World War. The Queen and husband Prince Philip received their first dose of vaccine just last month. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
1011 FM
and 1310 AM.
The Ottawa Hospital's Biotherapeutics Manufacturing Center will be manufacturing vaccines for human clinical trials, COVID-19 vaccines for human clinical trials. It includes a candidate from an Alberta-based company called Entos Pharmaceuticals. That would be a single-dose vaccine that could be stored at room temperature, but again, all at the clinical trial stage. But exciting nonetheless, and we're joined by Dr. Duncan Stewart, Executive Vice President of Research at the Ottawa Hospital and Professor of Medicine at the University of Ottawa. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Rob.
What is the Biotherapeutics Manufacturing Center?
Well, this is a very specialized center that we use to produce biological products. So these would be viruses or cells or genes that are used in clinical therapy. So they're produced to a very high degree of quality and obviously regulated very, very closely so that they're safe for human use. So the vaccine is a very similar product to what we're used to being produced in these facilities.
So is that what's called, and, reporters, journalists were all kind of catching up on what all of this jargon means. Fill and finish, sir? Is it along those lines?
Yeah, the fill finish, this is what we're doing for this vaccine. The Alberta company has produced the vaccine in Alberta, but they needed us to actually put it in the vials. And that may sound like a very simple thing, but it's not, because it's the final and very critical stage of the production that you've got to do this again under these very stringent conditions in clean rooms with everyone garbed up and in the hazmat type suits and you need specialized equipment to make sure that every vial gets filled in a safe way with exactly the right product. And of course labeled and all that. So it's actually quite a technical thing. But we have end-to-end capacity, so we can do from the very beginning of manufacturing all the way to the fill finish at the very end. So this is what we did for this vaccine. Though for other vaccines that we're working on, we'll be doing the more complete manufacturing.
Biotherapeutics Manufacturing Center. It's not a new place, is it?
No, this has been in operation now for 15 years, and over the last decade, we've produced a variety of clinical grade products for cancer trials, for trials to improve healing after heart attack, for example, and other kinds of applications. So we produced dozens of different products, and we also have contracts, so routinely get contracts from various industry partners to manufacture their products, for cell therapies or for cancer therapies.
Okay. What sort of capacity do you have at this facility, sir?
Yeah, we've been mainly focused on producing products that would be used in clinical trials, like the current vaccine. So we're not set up at this point to produce a massive scale for making millions of doses.
Okay.
But we could. So we have plans to do that. In fact, we're
you do?
Exactly, because not just for this application, but for others, we're at capacity now, and we need to expand. So we have plans for both a modest near-term expansion and then a large expansion in the near future that would allow us to scale up to produce the millions of doses that would be required to vaccinate the population. So we're hoping that we're going to get. So we're looking for partnerships and some funding to do this, and we're hoping that soon we'll be able to start.
But that's more or less in the application phase right now, would you say, Dr. Stewart?
Yeah, that's right. We're still. That's right. We're still sort of trying to get sufficient funding that we can move forward on it. We do have the plans all drawn up. We're ready to go, and we're hoping actually that we'll be able to do this in the near future. We'll be able to start the medium term expansion so that we could have more capacity.
So when it comes to your work with a candidate vaccine like this one from Entos Pharmaceuticals, would you be talking about a run of several hundred or several thousand? Just how would that work, sir?
Yeah, so it's in the hundreds or low thousands. That's the for these kinds of trials. I mean, typically the first trial, as will be the case here, will be a safety trial. So that would be in hundreds of patients where the purpose is really to make sure the vaccine is well tolerated, there's no reactions, and then it moves into phase 2 and then phase 3 testing, and you get to progressively larger numbers of subjects treated in the thousands and then the tens of thousands when you're finally in phase 3, where you're looking to see whether it actually works.
Okay. So again, it's just a candidate vaccine. It's still at the human clinical trial phase, right? Just starting the human clinical trial phase. So
that's right.
Early days.
It's early days,
right.
And obviously, it takes some time, and there's no guarantees here, but I think it's very encouraging.
Yeah. Single dose stored at room temperature. As opposed to, say, a vaccine, mRNA vaccine like Pfizer BioNTech, which needs the ultra-cold storage that we've learned so much about over the last few months. Would your facility have the capacity, if that kind of technology was needed, mRNA and cold storage, would you be able to do something like that?
Yeah, so that's, it's all very similar in terms of the manufacturing, and it wouldn't make any difference for us, RNA or DNA. But DNA does have a lot of advantages. You said DNA is much more stable than RNA. So it's stable at room temperature for a month or so and can be stored for a long term just in a regular refrigerator. So that makes it a lot more convenient.
Biotherapeutics Manufacturing Center. How unique is this facility, say, in Canada, sir? Is it one of a kind, one of a few?
So we're not the only one, and we're not the largest one. But we are by far the most active and successful. So there are a number of facilities that have, not yet been able to get up to full production capacity. I guess because we've been around for longer, we have over 40 skilled technicians and other staff members within the facility, and that's really what makes the products, right? Makes it work. I mean, the facilities are, sort of. Clean room facilities look nice. They're nice, shiny facilities, but they don't do anything unless you have the right people inside them. So we've got the full contingent of technicians. We've also established the first hands-on training program in Canada for developing these highly skilled workers, and of course that's essential for us to maintain our workforce. But also we can train folks for other facilities across Canada. We're also the only facility that's able to produce viruses for clinical use right now. And of course, this is what the vaccines are like, a virus. So this makes us so unique in that we can produce vaccines at this time, whereas other facilities are not there yet.
I wanted to ask you, who works in a biotherapeutics manufacturing center? What kind of skill set do you need? Who do is it scientists? Give us an idea of that, sir.
Certainly, you have scientists, and certainly scientists are overseeing this and developing the new therapies. But the actual technicians that are doing the work have a strong science background, often a PhD, and they need to really understand what they're doing. So it's people that have the right skills, the right understanding, and are able to work at a very high technical level, but also a very stringent level in terms of following the standard operating procedures and documenting everything. That's what's really important, right? From a safety point of view, that every step of the way, everything that's done is done extremely well and documented well.
And documented well. Okay. Okay. I've never heard of this facility until this week, I have to tell you. Is it secret, or if I asked you where it is, are you allowed to tell me?
Sure. There's no secret here. It has two locations. So we have one facility which is focused on virus manufacture. That's where we do most of the vaccine. It would be the vaccine manufacturing as well. Okay. And that's located in the Cancer Center at the Ottawa Hospital, the general campus. And we have another facility which is focused more on cell therapies and cell manufacturing. And so that's located also at the general campus in the critical care wing. Obviously, we have restricted access. You can't just walk off the street and wander in there.
Yeah, show me the vaccine. I want to see the vaccine. No.
But there's no secret, no.
Okay, it's very interesting. We think so often when we think about the Ottawa Hospital, acute care hospital, get sick, go to the hospital, get better. But a big mandate of the hospital is research, right, Dr. Stewart? Medical research.
No question. And research really is what's moving, sort of bringing the new therapies to our patients. And if it's really the hospitals that are involved in research that really have access to the cutting edge technologies and new therapies. In fact, our research is really very much integrated to patient care. All the research we do is really focused on trying to provide better quality care, new therapies, all this kind of thing, better ways of diagnosing and treating diseases. So, we're really research institute, but focused on the hospital mission of providing better care. And so much of the care that one receives at the hospital, at the Ottawa Hospital, really is based in research. Either it's actual research or it's the product of the research that we do.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart, and thank you to your team as well there. It's very interesting work that you're doing in the battle against COVID-19. I appreciate your time today.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Executive Vice President of Research at the Ottawa Hospital and a Professor of Medicine at the University of Ottawa. That is Dr. Duncan Stewart. This is the Rob Snow Show. We're going to talk about, what are we talking about? The red hot Ottawa Senators? Oh yeah, with Steve Warne coming up next on City News.
No Nut Butter is a business where we make allergy-friendly spreads, so alternatives to peanut butter, Nutella, or those kind of things that kids and adults like to have on toast or on a banana or on an apple, and aren't really available to people with severe food allergies or allergies to the top allergens. When you're an allergy parent, you read every label because you need to know the details of every ingredient that's in the products that you're going to feed your kid. So we found that a lot of the products that we were looking at had may contain warnings, which we can't have, and had just so many ingredients in them that you don't know if there's a weird unknown ingredient that is kind of disguised under a different name. So we started No Nut Butter so that we would have the opportunity to have products that were safe and free from the top allergens and had really simple ingredients in them so that you would know exactly what you were feeding your kids. We make 4 different products at No Nut Butter. So we make a pumpkin seed butter, which is our alternative to peanut butter. So it only has pumpkin seeds, roasted pumpkin seeds, and some kind of oil in it. So we usually use corn oil or olive oil. And then we make what we call Choco Pumpkin, and it is our alternative to a chocolate hazelnut spread. So it is our pumpkin seed butter with our chocolate spread, so very much chocolate hazelnut spread. We make a coconut caramel, so it is coconut milk and sugar, and it is our kind of vegan option for caramel, because typically caramel has lots of butter and dairy in it. And then we make an apple butter, which is apples and cinnamon and sugar, and that's it. We do also make a sugar-free pumpkin seed butter option because we have some diabetics and just some people who don't want sugar in their lives, and so we do offer that, but you'd have to custom order it. There are very strict rules around producing products, particularly nut-free products. You aren't allowed to cook in your own kitchen, which makes a lot of sense. If you have a dog, you don't want to cook in your own kitchen. But from a nut standpoint, it's just making sure that you have everything really clean and organized. So we cook all of our products in a commercial kitchen so that we can keep all of those health and safety procedures really tight and together. My personal business started a company called Shop Local Ontario during the pandemic, so we were pretty well equipped to go forward into the pandemic in a world of e-commerce and transacting online. You can find us online at nonutbutter.com, or you can find us on Facebook, No Nut Butter, or on Instagram at No Nut Butter.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
No, you are not dreaming. Steve Warne of the Sens Nation podcast and the Steve Warne Project. We are going to talk about the red hot, yes, you heard it, the red hot Ottawa Senators. Welcome back, Steve Warne.
Great to be here, Rob.
I'm just looking at this. The Senators have won 3 games in a row, and over their last 10, the Senators are actually a 500 hockey club. This is, it's fun again, all of a sudden, to be an Ottawa Senators fan. What do you think has been the big difference in the last couple of weeks, Steve?
Well, I think if you go back and rewind the tape to when the Sens were going so badly in the month of January, I kept kind of making excuses for them. Rob, remember, they just had a 10-month off season. That's unprecedented. Yeah. They turned over half their roster. They had no preparation for the season effectively, a really short camp, no exhibition games, not at all the kind of preparation you want. It basically set itself up for a disaster. So the first 10 games, I gave them a pass, but it continued beyond then. And maybe I basically I jumped off that take too soon because maybe they just needed more time than we all thought. So by about game 15, they started to figure things out. And I think they're just now on the same page. The rust is knocked off, and they just look like a better team. And I think maybe if you're looking at individual performances, Matt Murray has been a little more consistent now in these last 10 games, which is something that has unraveled the team in the past.
Yeah. You know, Steve, if you want to have a big I told you so moment, you go right ahead and have an I told you so moment, because I was actually thinking, watching some of the game, I think Steve Warne was actually right. They could have used some exhibition games. Maybe if they had had some exhibition games, maybe the coach or the GM would have known all those old guys that they signed weren't very good, and they would have played the younger guys right from the start, because it seems as though it's the fresh faces that are carrying the load, Steve. I'm sure you would agree. I'm wondering if who you think has really risen to the occasion here among the new faces.
Well, I mean, Tim Stützle comes immediately to mind. He just continues to. I feel like his point totals don't really tell the whole story. He's still a guy that's a kid. Like, he just turned 19 in his first NHL game back in January on the 15th. And he's so young, and he's still figuring out what works, what doesn't work. Like, I can't skate by guys like I did in Edmonton at the recent World Junior Hockey Championships. I can just skate by guys. It's the NHL. So he's figuring everything out, and he just looks better to me game in, game out. He does something, like 2 or 3 things a game where I'm going, wow. So to be this impressed with him now, imagine where he'll be 2 or 3 years from now. So I've loved his game. I think you look at a guy like Drake Batherson, who's got 4 goals in as many games. He's starting to look like a guy who's, he's always had the skill, Rob, but in the past, there have been moments where he looks like he's got a grenade on his stick blade, just looking skittish. And now he looks like a guy, and I think I've talked about this before, you can really see when a guy's arrived in the NHL when he looks like he feels like he belongs. And that's where Batherson appears to be to me. And Tkachuk's not a new face, but he's been an absolute beast here in the last 10 games especially. Everything you want out of a leader. I don't know why they don't just turn around, Rob, and give the guy the captaincy right now. Yeah. I know the coaches said, no, wait till next year. But I think he is absolutely 100% of the fan base's choice to be this team's captain. And I bet if you polled the players themselves, they would choose him as well.
Yeah. And as you said, Matt Murray looks a lot better, right? So
yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's huge.
I mean,
yeah.
You saw last night with the Calgary Flames, if you saw that.
Oh, yeah. They caught the Flames. I guess that goalie had played 3 games in a row, and they'd played the night before. Man, they had a bad night. Calgary, they were not very good last night. Like, if you're relying on Milan Lucic, like, good luck, so.
Yeah, they're going through a bad time right now, and David Rittich didn't help them in goal last night. I think the Sens took control of that game well before Rittich's play had a factor in the game, but any chance the Flames had of getting back into it was undone by Rittich's poor play. I mean, Eric Brandstrom, man, that guy was probably standing in the old Hurley's parking lot in Bell's Corners when he took that shot. My goodness. And then something called Zagadulin has to come in and finish out the game for the Flames. So, yeah, that's just an example that if goaltending's not on, that deflates the entire roster.
All right. Shall we dare to dream, Steve? Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Okay, the Sens are 7-14-1. Okay, they have 15 points in 22 games. But again, they've won 3 in a row. They're a 500 team in their last 10. The top 4 teams in this North Division will make the playoffs. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay. That spot is held right now by Montreal. We'll talk about Montreal and the coaching situation there, and a team that's going in the wrong direction. They've lost 4 straight. But could it happen? Could the Sens compete for that final 4th playoff spot in that division?
Well, if you're to regard the bottom four as a four-horse race, there is only one team that's on an upswing right now, and that is the Ottawa Senators. In this race, they're starting the race from well behind the pack. But the Montreal Canadiens are 7 points ahead of the Sens right now, and we know they're slumping. They just fired their coach, and for one game, it didn't make any difference at all. They got worked by the Jets. Then you get the Flames. We saw what they're looking like these days last night.
Yep.
They've lost a couple in a row. They've struggled. The Canucks have lost 4 in a row.
Yep.
They've struggled as well, even though we have this memory of them working the Sens over. I think we now know that that was not necessarily indicative of the Ottawa Senators as they are. And so there's only one team on the upswing right now, and that's the Sens. So why not?
Why not?
I'm now at a stage where I wouldn't put any money on it, but I'm allowing myself to think about it. Why wouldn't you?
Sure. Yeah. I actually did some math, Steve.
Nice.
It's a 56-game season, right?
Correct.
Senators have played 22 games. They have 34 games remaining.
Mm-hmm.
If they win 60% of those games, they would end with 55 points in 56 games. Now, I don't know if anybody has done the forecast of what they think it's going to take to make the playoffs, but 56 points, 55 points in 56 games, maybe that's good enough to get it done. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But I don't know. It's a lot more fun to be a Sens fan now than it was 2 weeks ago. I'll tell you that, and I'm loving it. It's a lot better when they're winning than when they're losing.
Well, I think if you're dealing with any pro sports franchise, Rob, even in the bad times, fans can endure pretty much anything as long as there is a sense that there is hope for better days ahead.
Yeah.
And after 3 years before this year, 3 years where they are either dead last or second last overall, most 3 years, and then they come out of the gate this year, I think it was 2-12-1 out of the gate.
Right.
It looked like we were in for another year without hope. Even though they have all these young prospects, all these exciting players, it's going to be another year of Now, not only has that hope been renewed somewhat, but the team is playing really entertaining hockey. Like, I like the style they're playing right now. They're just fun to watch. They come at you from a physical element. They're a fast team now. It's if somebody's been in a coma for the last couple of weeks and sat down to watch that Sens game last night, they'd be like, "Who's this team?
Yes.
Where did they come from?"
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so it should be a good one. Do you like the afternoon games? I actually like the afternoon games. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock is the game tomorrow against Calgary. So.
Yeah, no, I don't mind afternoon games. They're always a little different. They seem to have had quite a few of them this year, but I know the players hate it. The players just despise it. It takes them completely out of their rhythm, and they probably do have a routine going now in this weird NHL we're in right now with no fans at the game. That probably took some adjustment, but I would imagine they've adjusted to that. What they don't adjust to is any disruption in their nap time and when they eat and when they arrive at the rink. Yeah,
well, come on. You and I were early morning radio guys. We don't like interruptions in nap time either, Steve. So
that is true.
All right. Talk next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, go Sens, go. Steve Warne, Sens Nation podcast, and the Steve Warne Project with us every Friday to talk sports. Queen's Park, Week in Review, coming right up on City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 26th. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buck, and right now in Ottawa, sunshine -5, sunny and -2 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. Health Canada has approved the Astrazeneca COVID-19 vaccine for national use in people 18 and over, including seniors. Canada is to get 20 million doses of the shot, which is administered in 2 doses. This will be between April and September. It's the third COVID-19 vaccine given the green light by Canada following those from Pfizer and Moderna. Some countries, including France, have authorized the AstraZeneca vaccine only for use in people under the age of 65, saying there's not enough evidence to say whether or not it works in older adults. Public Health Ontario reporting 52 new cases of COVID-19 in the capital today out of 1,258 new cases across the provinces. Total case counts continue an upwards trend this week. 28 more people have died in Ontario after contracting novel coronavirus. Elsewhere locally, 11 new cases in Eastern Ontario, 4 for Leeds Grenville, and 10 new cases for Renfrew County. These are all provincial numbers. The local health units update their numbers in the afternoon. And it seems the COVID-19 pandemic is spurring more Canadians to seek the great outdoors. Ontario Park says reservations for its campsites have nearly doubled from the same time last year. That's based on bookings made between January 1st and February 5th. The agency recommends would-be campers seek out bookings at less popular parks to ensure greater availability for sites. I'm Sarah Buchan for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
And the gang's all here. It's time for Queen's Park Week in Review. It was another busy one. Gilles Bisson is a New Democrat, is riding as Timmins. Good morning, Gilles.
Good morning.
Where are you?
Timmins.
In Timmins, okay. All right, okay. John Fraser is the Liberal from Ottawa South. In Ottawa South today, John?
Good morning, Rob.
Yes, good.
I'm in Old Ottawa South today.
Old Ottawa South. Okay. And David Piccini joins us as well, progressive conservative. David, good morning.
Good morning.
Usually calling in from Port Hope. Is that the case today?
Yeah, I'm calling in from my constituency office in Port Hope.
Excellent. Well, I thank you all for taking the time. We'll start with you, David. If you will, give us the bullet points of the province's vaccination plan. A lot of criticism that it's too slow.
Thanks very much, Rob. First and foremost, I mean, we know Ontario is quite some time ago, and we continue to communicate to the public and update. We have a vaccine plan for distribution and administration of the COVID vaccine. I do think it's important to note that how that plan is implemented and the specific mix of vaccination sites, obviously varying between hospitals, clinics, pharmacies, mobile clinics, etc., that'll look different across Ontario's 34 public health units. As the province is vast, I mean, we know what happens in Kenora is different than Ottawa, is different than Hastings and Toronto. And one of the, obviously our biggest defense against COVID and its variants is the vaccine. So based on the supply that we've received in Ontario, we currently lead the nation in terms of doses administered. We've offered first doses to every long-term care resident and are almost done completing the second doses across the province. Building on that second dose piece, we've administered more second doses than any other province and territory combined, and are protecting the most vulnerable, long-term care, et cetera, that we mentioned. Okay. Fully immunizing there. So as we go forward, you heard from the General March 15th, and as we receive more supply, we'll be in a position to expand to other groups.
Well, just on that date, if I could just jump in, David, just on that date, March 15th, and the portal and online booking, a lot of questions about that particular date and whether it's going too fast. This was the premier yesterday.
Oh, I'm going to respectfully disagree. We're far behind. We're leading the whole country. We're doing more than Alberta, BC. You combine all the vaccinations in the entire country. Ontario's doing more, so I don't know how we're falling behind on that. But in saying that, let's look at Alberta. Let's take Alberta, then I'll move over to Quebec. And they're both great provinces, both great premiers there. They put up their website, and bang, it's crashed. we want to make sure we nail this. We have it down pat.
All right. So it doesn't want the website to clash. Gilles, let me jump to Gilles here. What do you think, Gilles, of what you've heard so far?
Well, listen, if I was to listen to the Premier in his press conferences, I think he's doing a great job. The problem is when you get it on the ground, when you see what is actually happening, is different than what the Premier is actually saying. We could have developed our own website here in Ontario in order to meet the needs of Ontario. No, we went to California where there is actually known problems with that website. I think, part of the problem, and I give the government some slack here, of the G7 nations, Canada is lagging when it comes to the amount of people being vaccinated because of vaccine availability. And obviously some of that rests on the federal government, not all of it, but some of it does. Provinces have to play the hand that they're given by the federal government. But I think, could the provincial government have done better? God, we knew that we were going to have to vaccinate last year. Why didn't we start all of this stuff a long time ago? We knew we were going to need websites. We knew we were going to have to enhance our distribution system that currently exists. It seems that the government sort of is like always doing catch-up, trying to reinvent the wheel when the wheel was already there. And I think some of this is brought on by themselves.
Okay. So you think that time has been squandered, you're saying?
Yep.
So, okay. John, go ahead. John, jump in there.
Yeah, it always feels like we're 2 steps behind. Like, it was clear this week that we weren't ready. And we knew in October, at least latest October, maybe September, that we were going to have a mass vaccination campaign, and it would be coming up pretty soon because vaccines were in the pipeline. And so we get to, March, next week. Alberta and Quebec, they've launched their websites and their portals. Alberta did register a couple 100,000 people. They had a problem in the morning, which most of these sites can anticipate that. But they did register a couple 100,000 people. So the Premier's analogy or example is really not fair. But, I wanted to address something that David said, and about how we vaccinate more than anybody in Canada. And, some of those things, they are true. They have some truth. But what David doesn't mention is the point of this is to get the vaccines into the most vulnerable. So it took us almost 500,000 doses, and 60 days, 2 weeks behind 5 other provinces to get a first dose to the 70,000 residents of long-term care. You got to get them into the right arms first. That's the point. Okay. And not being ready next week. Now, the city of Ottawa is ready. Actually, so is Waterloo. So is Guelph. So is Barrie. And they're actually forging ahead next week to do 80-year-olds. They're not waiting for the government's portal.
Well, is this 80-year-old? Hold on, 80-year-olds in high-risk community in 7 high-risk neighborhoods, right? But not all 80-year-olds. But John, you're leaving the impression that all 80-year-olds. Right?
I'm not. I said they're starting.
Okay.
And they're going to have to start. And the way you start is you go with an age group, and then you go where it's your hardest hit.
Okay. David, I want David to. Sure. Yes, absolutely, David. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think John's tweaked his messaging before. He was saying, well, look to Quebec for the most vulnerable. And then you quickly realize, oh my gosh, that actually when it comes to those most vulnerable, Ontario leads again the nation. We've got Quebec seniors languishing, waiting 90 days for off-label use of the vaccine. In fact, they've launched a court challenge against the government on it. So I think, again, in terms of the most vulnerable, flying communities and those areas up north are getting the support that remote immunity was successful. The most vulnerable, as you pointed out again, they're trying to leave that perception. And I just wish, Rob, we would be a little more collaborative here. This is a Herculean effort across the country. Premier Ford's been very collaborative with the federal government, hasn't exhibited the partisanship that you've heard the opposition that they would have liked him to have maybe exhibited, or that partisanship that where they're trying to go. He's been very collaborative, and it would be nice to see that here in Ontario. And the bottom line is we could have rolled out a whole bunch of things, but the reality is locally when we had to pivot from Pfizer to Moderna, and you say, we should have this, we could communicate that, but what difference does it make if people can't get the vaccine today? And we know when people are getting it. We've rolled out that timelines, 80 plus in March, and we have the software, which is being beta tested. beta tested to support that. That we've been rocked with supply challenges. We were supposed to have Pfizer, we got Moderna, now we got AstraZeneca.
Yeah.
So reality keeps shifting.
Did somebody want to jump in here? Because I do have some other angles of this that I want to get into. Okay. Yeah.
Just very quickly. Listen, to the point that the government's trying to be collaborative, and Mr. Ford is very collaborative. Again, it's like the words are right. And nobody argues that we shouldn't be collaborative. I want to be collaborative. Don't you, Rob? Don't you, John? We all want to go there.
I'm known as the collaborative
type. Hang on.
Yes.
But the point is, that's not what the government is doing. The government says you either do it my way, and if you don't like it, I'm going to attack you, and I'm going to call you that you're not collaborative, and I'm going to blame. It's not the way that we should do things. Are we going to have differences? You bet we're going to have differences, but there are things that we can agree on, and even on those things that we can agree on, the government is not being very forthright when it comes to finding ways of working with others.
So David, just so we're clear, I haven't tweaked my messaging. And number two, if you take a look at the results in Quebec with the most vulnerable, you'll see that they've done much better in the second wave, and that's just a fact.
It's not.
I want to address something else.
I wouldn't give anybody a gold medal. Okay. All right.
David, you had a chance to talk.
Okay. Quickly, John.
I just want to say is we passed a motion that I put forward in the legislature in December, all parties, that said we wanted an open and transparent vaccine rollout, and that the task force would come to the Emergency Management Committee, which they haven't done, that the government would report bi-weekly, which they haven't done. You've done none of the things in the motion that you voted for. That's not collaboration. And just because Jill and myself and colleagues ask questions that you don't like,
bi-weekly.
That's not collaborating. That's what.
All right. I don't want to get bogged down in kumbaya around the campfire. What I do want to get into is this idea that a vaccination program should be, centrally managed. For some reason. And part of this has to do with stuff that's on Twitter by people who are going to run for the Liberals in the next election. They're spreading misinformation on social media. Come on. There was always going to be a role to play, we know, for the 34 public health units. That's why they're there, okay? Mm-hmm. They're involved in flu campaigns every year, for crying out loud. The idea that they wouldn't be involved in a vaccination program is patently absurd, that it would be managed out of Toronto. Come on, get with it, people. But this was the premier this week.
But I've done it before. Maybe I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. I got to, because we have so many great PHU, public health units. We have so many great hospitals. But you know who just, who leads the pack all the time is Ottawa, Dr. Etches and Cam Love from Ottawa. They never have to be told anything. They take it, they run with it, they jump ahead and just start moving forward. And they're just two incredible leaders.
Go Ottawa, go. Jill, don't you think that those darn dastardly Liberals are being disingenuous when they talk about this being too decentralized, Jill?
Well, listen, I am not going to speak for or against the Liberals. I'll let them do that.
Oh, come on. It'll be like the good old days, Jill. It'll be like the good old days. Come on.
Listen, I've been dealing with Liberals. And my old friend, the former member from Beaches East York, would used to always say, listen, I know Liberals with principles. If they don't like this one, they've got another one to give you later. So I'm not going to get into this one. But the point is that we do have a distribution system, as you said earlier, and we use it every year for flu shots. Yes. And we should try to adapt that as much as we can to this current situation. And I think that's the way we need to go, is that we need to make sure that these things are run through our PHUs. I don't want central government deciding how I'm going to get my vaccine in Timmins. I think we're right to leave our PHUs head that. Unfortunately, we were slow getting to that decision. The government tried to reinvent the wheel, eventually figured out they couldn't do that, and have been backing towards supporting PHUs, which I think is a good thing. The only last thing I would say, it's interesting to see Mr. Ford support PHUs, because one of the first things he did is try to dismantle them and defund them. So it's kind of interesting that he's changed his tune.
All right. Okay. John Fraser, is it not true that there are people in your party who are perpetrating a massive campaign of misinformation right now?
No, that's totally untrue. And so let's no, seriously, let's ask ourselves the question: the government was putting everything on PHUs. Why are they developing an online portal? Why are they doing a central call center? Why do they have a science table? Why are they giving guidance and directions to PHUs? And here's the reason why. Different PHUs need different levels of support. Ottawa's got a great public health unit. Other public health units don't have the same resources, don't have the same skill sets in there. So you have to have an approach that, what it comes down to is you rely on these partners. Ottawa's done well because we have a great PHU. They've made decisions quickly, they've taken action quickly, and they've communicated clearly. Government's had a challenge with that. And the government needs to do things like provide a supporting thing like a portal and a call center for those who don't have that.
Government's been doing that for years.
Okay, one at a time.
But let me finish for a second. And the other piece is, PHUs were waiting for the government to decide what are the priorities. Like literally, it was they've been changing, and there are new priorities last week. And then 9 days ago, the head of the task force says we're going to start vaccinating. We're going to start vaccinating 80-year-olds in the first week of March. And then 3 days ago, it was the third week of March.
Okay.
So it's a challenge for like if you there needs to be a centralized approach. The government clearly recognizes that, but it's one of support and advice and exertise, and also making decisions quickly and communicating clearly before. And actually, in Ottawa, they basically at council they've come forward and said
Okay, thank you for clearing that up, John. We've got to go to David. We've got to go to David before we break. Go ahead.
Thanks. So I would certainly agree with what Rob said with what John said. Sorry, Rob, with respect to that different public health units are different, and that's without question. Some are in a different position than others. The merits are notwithstanding the fact, the discussion around do we need per se 34 of them, but the reality is, as it exists today, the pandemic and our structure today, Premier Ford is working closely with all of our PHUs. We've had knowledge sharing sessions where PHUs are sharing best practices and advice. And the reality is, if we weren't doing this, the Liberals would be saying, you should be listening to your public health units. What are you doing centralizing things? And now they're saying centralize it. So we're talking out of both sides of their mouth here. But the reality is this is precisely why we launched Ontario Health Teams. In my community, Rob, we've got community paramedicine funded by the Ford government that will be essential to doing this. We've got rural and remote health hub clinics, again, funded by the Ford government. This is in stark contrast to the centralized Bay Street decision-making under the previous Liberal government. So this will be supporting the vaccine administration in rural communities like mine. And so it's a balance. I don't think it's an either or. I think it's a balance. Something you'll never hear from those Liberals who are looking to run it.
Oh, the Ontario Liberals! Don't get me started.
I know. Don't get anyone started.
All right.
Yeah.
Rob, I'm sensing some bias.
All right. No, look, all in good fun. We'll be right back with the second half. I want to get more into the MPPs and their take on the proposed changes to election laws that sort of came out of nowhere this week from the Ford government. We'll talk about that next on the Rob Snow Show. This is the Queen's Park Week in Review on City News.
I'm blessed to be married to someone who is a scientist and spent a lot of time following what was happening over in China ahead of time. So he did give us the heads up that this was coming. Not that we believed him right off the bat, but when it did happen very, very quickly, we were prepared. We had hand sanitizer and we were set up to not close our doors. So we locked the kitchen down at Wellington Street, but we left this kitchen open. We put in protocols immediately. We only allowed our very small crew of 4 or 5 people in at the time. No deliveries were allowed to come in or out of the building without, they just weren't allowed in and out of the building. So we met them at the loading dock and had very strict protocols in place right away. We had masks and hand sanitizer and the whole thing. So we're very lucky from that perspective, and we're able to, learn as we went as far as doing small, individually packed caterings, the frozen soup program, food for the Ottawa mission. So we didn't have to close the kitchen and then learn how to reopen it. We just were able to modify and shift as we needed to. Because of our partnership with the Ottawa Mission, we were able to very quickly help support them. They were able to send us some product and some supplies, so it wasn't a burden on our business, and we were able to supply the staffing and the packaging to help produce that when they needed it the most. And we produced about 1,400 meals a week to complement their meals, and we started our soup program right away. We realized very quickly that there was a need in the community to get together and all work together, not only to support local, but also just to support all the people that were suddenly in a position of, being locked down and not being able to get out. So by starting that soup program, our community, our clients got online and started making donations for the soups, and we were able to produce the soups and get them back out to people that needed it. We're right now currently making 150 liters of soup per week, but we've made, I would say, 5,000 or 6,000, easily since the pandemic. Probably more. I'd have to do the math, but lots. I think everybody in the city has to be very aware of how blessed we were to have great weather this summer and people were able to get out and about, and that's going to shift. So we do have to be much more aware of who our most vulnerable is, and I really think we have to work together as groups. There are so many organizations in the city that are doing something and contributing and working together, and I think it doesn't matter who, but see what you can do to just step up and help them, whatever it is, whether it's driving or delivering food, or someone has extra zucchini in their garden, or if they can afford to donate some money to any of these organizations. I just think we all have to work together. We're smarter and wiser than we were the first time.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We don't have a lot of time. We only have about 5 minutes left, but that's enough time to go around with Gilles Bisson, John Fraser, and David Piccini and get their take on the Ford government's proposals to change the election laws that would limit, according to the government, third-party advertising in an attempt to boost voter participation. I guess what I want to know is about the idea of doubling maximum contribution rates from $1,650 to $3,300 a year. But can you give us some details on why this is being done, David? Go ahead, David.
Thanks very much, Rob. Well, I think first and foremost, I think the COVID-19 pandemic has presented a very different reality to how we do a lot of things in life. And I think if you look to the Newfoundland election and some very real challenges that they had there with respect to, some very significant challenges on canceling things and some very pivoting, and I think we don't want to be in a position where we're doing that with our democratic structure here in Ontario. So it's important to get in front of it now. And so I think looking at some of the measures there, if you look at extending advanced polling, again, giving people more access versus the traditional. And, I think back to when I got elected, the number of people that would congregate at the rec center to cast their ballot, there'd be long lines, ferrying people.
Yeah, advanced polling days are going from 5 to 10, anyway. So that's good. And I think looking at some of the advertising, that Ontario really stands as an outlier relative to even nationally, Rob, with respect to, other third-party groups advertising. And I think when we look to what's happened in the United States, I think it's important that we maintain, the very unique and much more, spirited debate that we have in Canada, and debate where we can still be friends, as I am with John. And the crackdown on third-party advertising has already been in place in this bill.
Yeah, so we're improving on that. And finally,
it used to be the Wild
West. With respect to the contribution limits you mentioned, I think if you look, that makes us, very much an average relative to the rest of the country. We are Canada's largest province, and this now puts us, middle of the pack relative to other provinces, I guess Saskatchewan, others, where there's no limits.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. You could donate as an individual $3,300 a year to the party, the candidate, and the constituency association. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. That's
to all
in
three?
An election year, correct.
In an election year, 9,900. So 9,900 in all.
So here's the long and the short.
All right. Okay.
So,
go ahead, Gilles. Yeah.
Any government who introduces legislation to deal with campaign reform normally does it because it's to their advantage.
Sure.
That's just the reality.
Okay.
So is there things in here that are good? Yeah. Extending the amount of advance polling, I think that's a good thing. Nobody will argue with that.
Consultation.
But when you say we're going to go from 6 months as far as third-party advertising prior to an election to 12 months, that favors the government. That means to say people who are upset about long-term care and other things that have happened during this pandemic are going to be barred from doing third-party advertising on the issues that they care about. So clearly that helps the government. When it comes to increasing the amount of money individuals can give, that helps the Liberals to a degree, but it really helps the Tories. We as New Democrats have raised more money during this pandemic than the other two parties, almost as much as the Tories. But we've done it with fewer donors. We've done it with fewer donors. Our donor base is about $20 per donation. The Tory donor base is about $400. The Liberals are around $300. So if you increase the base, that means to say it favors the Tories. That's why they're doing it.
Okay. We only have a minute left, John, so we'll have to make it quick. John, go ahead, John.
You're making I feel like you're singling me out that I spend too much time. Look. First of all,
are they trying to rig the game?
It would have been good to have a heads up. And when we've done this legislation before, governments do go out, but we have talked to other parties about our intent and about what we're doing. And I think that's the right way to go forward. There's some good things that are in there, like around the advanced polling, around some around some of the stuff that they're doing with regards to social media, which is not a big thing, but there's not a lot of clarity around it. So I still have to dig into it because actually I was in the car when it got introduced, and it's a very big piece of legislation. And so we do have to ask, why are we doing this right now?
Okay.
Why are we doing this right now in the middle of a pandemic?
Okay.
Good.
Good question. Okay.
Make it more accessible.
Well, I mean, I don't know. When would you do it? Okay. We have to go. Everybody, have a great weekend. I don't know what the weather's going to be like where you are, but it's going to be mild this weekend here in Ottawa. Enjoy it, and we'll talk next week. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Everyone, stay safe.
Gilles Bisson from Timmins, John Fraser, Liberals, Ottawa South. Gilles Bisson is the New Democrat, and David Piccini, Progressive Conservative.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command.